Happy Friday and welcome into the SMITE Circuit Playoffs. I know it's been a while since we had some competitive SMITE action, but you have to wait no longer. We are going to have a throwdown here in EU and in A between our Challenger Circuit players as well as our Open Circuit players here, Lermy. So I'm pretty excited for, obviously, my name is Finch. I am joined here by Lermy. So you have some great games lined up here for you today. And as I said, we're going to be starting things off in Europe. We got Belt Slap and Smileyface going to be the first match we look at.
These two are going to be a great matchup, honestly. We're taking the #1 seed from the SEC and putting them up against the #1 seed from the SOC. So these guys on Smileyface are coming out at a, well, you might call it disadvantage, but I'm sure that they prepared a ton for this matchup because they're up against what seems to be the beast in this region here.
Yeah, and not just seems to be, but is at this point, right? No one's been able to find a way to beat them. They went 5-0, 10-0 if you count the individual games throughout that Phase 2. So at this point, Belt Slap look pretty untouched. This is our schedule. The way that the format of this tournament is going to work is that it is double elimination. So even if Smileyface or Belt Slap were to drop in this first match, their tournament hopes would not be over. They would drop down to that lower bracket and continue to have a chance to try and fight back up and play a little bit later. Whichever one of those teams it is, between these two that ends up dropping down, wouldn't be out of the tournament outright.
That's a good look for them, too, because, of course, you can always kind of play the bracket to your advantage there. So even if you do lose this first matchup, you do have a chance to make it back up and into the finals. And, of course, making it to the finals is incredibly important. Getting that share of $32,000 per region is certainly something to go for here. And I'm sure hoping that these guys put up a great fight for it.
Yeah, I'm expecting so. As you mentioned, Belt Slap, I think, are the heavy favorites coming into this one. That's no surprise, but certainly a chance that Smileyface can grab this win. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I know we haven't had some competitive Smite in a while, so y'all might still be shaking the rust off a little bit, getting in here, so don't worry about that. Throughout the day, really throughout the entirety of this weekend, what we're going to be doing is trying to show the way that you all are enjoying watching the Smite Pro League out there at home. So you can take the opportunity whenever it ends up coming up for you to tweet at us. Let us know how it is that you are enjoying to watch these circuit playoffs, and we'll try and get you featured at some point here on the broadcast. That's been a pretty fun source. You've got to see people outside enjoying it in the nice weather, whatever it is that you're doing it. We would love to see that. So make sure you let us know.
Absolutely. Especially if you guys have pets or watching with pets, be sure to send us pictures of those, and we would love to comment on those.
Yeah, every single time. If you can get a cat in there, a dog, something like that, you're guaranteed to be on. That's contractually obligated. Lermy just said it, so you can take it up with her. If you put a pet picture out there and you somehow don't make it on the stream, which, again, I don't see how that could happen. Lermy just said that. So to go a little bit more back into the match, and again, if you want to make sure you're in there, that is hashtag Circuit Playoffs. Make sure you're a part of that. But at Smite Pro as well as to let you know about it. But if we want to go back to the match a little bit more here, Lermy, between Belt Slap and Smileyface, we could talk a little bit about where we think the most important matchup is going to be. And for me, I think that's going to be in the jungle. This matchup here with Johnny in particular from Belt Slap, I think, is going to be pretty key.
He kind of is like the big heavy hitter for Belt Slap here, especially because he kind of gets targeted out a lot of the times. When it comes down to the bans, it really is important that they have to take out his Kali or his Bakasura or something of that nature, because especially since we just saw Golden Blade get buffed, it's really his meta, which is kind of scary to think that he was playing those characters before they had the items that were really good for them.
That's right. Johnny was a hard carry when he was on a team that wasn't stacked to the brim with SPL caliber talent. And now he is on a roster that is that same level, right? Julio, Zero, Strix, and Arkle, I think all could make a pretty easy case for playing in the SPL like tomorrow if they needed to. So this is certainly a really strong roster. And the thing is that Johnny, like you said, is still managing to stand out even amongst all that talent. The jungle role obviously controls a lot of it, but I think just as much of it is his individual skill. The guy's obviously an all-star.
Absolutely, and the rest of the team, like you said, are no pushovers either. We've got so much SPL level talent. I mean, talk about talent in general, just Arkle, Trix, Tank, Zeros, and Julio, like you said. All of them really should be getting those kind of bans like we see away from them when it comes down to what they take from Johnny, but I don't know, man. When it comes down to picks and bans, it's got to be either Johnny's picks or maybe Julio's tier. There's not a whole lot of options really left after you take those guys away. I mean, that leaves open characters like Persephone and other of those really strong heavy hitters like maybe Heimdall too that would still make it through.
Yeah, and the team that has to try and find a way to slow all of that down, Lermy, is now Smileyface. Not an enviable task. I'm having a hard time trying to find a way to make sure that I, build them up enough, because I think this team has earned that, right? As you mentioned, they are your open circuit representatives from EU, so that is plenty of credentials all by itself. But they also have some pretty recognizable names on there, I think, in Lamogao and Ikrom, they're going to have to be kind of that veteran presence here for them, and especially Lamogao in particular, Lermy.
Yeah, Mogao has been around the scene for what seems like forever. He used to be on the old Elevate roster of, I believe it was Season 2. So throwing it back to those times, he's still out here taking names in the solo lane, as he has been showing that he is really the strength of this team. And I can imagine that even though you don't typically see the solo laners being the shot callers, I could see him being all up in the comms, really pushing it forward and bringing his team to a W here.
Yeah, I think that if he's not heavily involved, then you could even call it a mistake from Smileyface. They're going to need, I think, that level of experience if they're going to take out a team as strong as Beltslap. Now, remember, the format for this tournament is that it is all best of threes up until the final. So it's not as if they need to beat Beltslap 3 times or anything like that. If they can find a way to get 2 victories, then they can be moving on still in that upper bracket, and Beltslap would drop in the lower. But obviously, that is easier said than done. I think one thing that might be in Smileyface's corner is just how much prep can Beltslap have done for them. I'm sure Beltslap's minds are further ahead towards semis and finals, and what are they going to do with all these other powerhouse SEC teams? Maybe there's a chance Smileyface can catch them off guard.
Yeah, I'm hoping to see some of the theory crafting they've done for this. They could pull out something that Beltslap just has not ever seen before, or are just not expecting to pull out. So the element of surprise is certainly in their favor. So I'm hoping that, maybe they pull out something spicy. I mean, we could really see a whole lot of anything here, because these guys are kind of up in the air as to what they play. Maybe even a Hades solo that's going back to Mogao's past, but even still, that could be something to look out for.
Hey, it's scary. I mean, just think about it, right? Mathematically, there's 5 years of footage on Trick, 6 years of footage on him. So there's plenty for Smileyface to go and look at, and maybe they figured something out. We will find out, though, in these picks and bans for game number 1, as it looks like it is going to be Beltslap in that first pick position. And I think this is something that's worth a conversation in and of itself right now, Lermy, because there's so many valuable picks that maybe there's a bit of an advantage to going second, because you can grab 2 and respond to just the 1, or would you rather have that first spot and just guarantee you're getting at least one thing you want?
I think for Beltslap, this is really in their favor to be in the first pick spot. They want to be able to pick up whatever it is that they feel is the most OP on their team immediately. Because as we talked about, the bans are most likely going to be targeted at them, although I'm kind of surprised to see the Morrigan getting taken away immediately. Although, honestly, Zeros used to be the best Morrigan in the whole entire world. So, of course, now that she's back allowed in competitive play, it's going to be really good that she's taken off the table, at least for him. But, again, we're going to have to see some more target bans here, because it's just so difficult to pick out the gods that are going to be good against them, because they're just so good at this point.
Wow, that's interesting. We were really worried that Smileyface are going to use a lot of their bans trying to limit Johnny and what he was going to do in the jungle, but so far, it's all been Zeros. And honestly, Lermy, I think that this makes a ton of sense to me. I know how strong Johnny has been performing for this team, but I think if you just let Zeros get his comfort picks like Morrigan or Persephone, then you might as well just go ahead and go into game number 2. At least do something to try and mitigate Zeros' impact. I know he hasn't been at the SPL for a while, but that was not because of his skill. Some other things kind of came into play there. Certainly, Zeros is still a really, really strong player.
Absolutely, and of course, maybe they planned it for this indeed, and they've gone for some sort of strategy to mitigate some of these Golden Blade assassins that Johnny favors. So if they've got that game plan and this is what they drafted up, then by all means, they're already in the winning side of things at this point, because they're getting exactly what they want in theory, but that's in theory. So they're going to be first picking a Kumba Karna here, which honestly, when it comes down to mitigating those auto attack assassins, it does work. They've got the attack speed slow on the Yawn, so at least there's that, and they can also kind of directly counter a Bakasura or Kali by sending them up into the air during the duration of their ultimates. So that's kind of just a warning shot saying, don't you dare pick those, because we'll be countering them.
Yeah, sort of an anti-dive pick, right, so to speak. I mean, with that AoE mez, with the ability, as you said, to take someone out of combat, Kumba Karna can be great at stopping one person from doing a whole lot of damage. It just depends on if that's going to be the situation. It can also be great initiation for Smileyface, too. So they've got some options. As Ram gets selected, I think largely considered the strongest hunter right now. At the very least, he's near the top of those hunters. So Smileyface, I think, have locked down, at the very least, a strong duo lane for Silence and Ikro.
I think that that's a really good idea, though, to get these guys that might be on the weaker end of the team who have less competitive play, really something that they're comfortable on and that they feel is really strong. Getting those guys locked down and having the people who have more experience getting a little more flexible with their picks is a really good idea. But on the other side, Belt Slap has just locked in Camazotz and Uller, and these two characters have been basically banned out a lot of the time up in the SEC, and Nemesis is the selection up against them. And of course, we're going back and forth with these Golden Blade Assassins, but she's kind of one of them that can fit the bill. She's been getting buffed left and right, it seems, patch after patch, and so maybe now's her time to shine.
Yeah, that's a fair point. We haven't really talked that much yet about Belt Slap's composition, but perhaps there's a chance that this Nemesis can be used to try and punish that Yamoja or something like that. Not a particularly popular pick, I wouldn't say, with Nemesis right now. There's so many other assassins that do well, but as you mentioned, perhaps she can be that answer that Smileyface need. But there is quickly rising a problem on the Belt Slap side. I mean, they've given them now picks that can individually run the game. If Uller gets the lead, you control the left side of the map. If Johnny on Camazotz gets the lead, then it's over. Or he could be in the solo lane too. I mean, you really don't even know at this point. I think Belt Slap have done a great job with these first 3 picks.
I also can appreciate the bans coming out of Belt Slap, taking away the Nox and the Hera to make sure that Smile's mid laner is going to be pushing a little bit further back into the God pool, and of course Smile has gone and taken away Julio's tier. Thank goodness that goes away, because that is just the character that he is the most comfortable with by far. But of course that leaves open a ton of different options here. I mean, we still got King Arthur on the board, for goodness sake, so perhaps we're going to be seeing that on either side, as both are still probably left without a solo laner. Of course Camazotz can flex in that direction, but gosh, we just forgot about Merlin. It seems that both these teams got to let him slip through the cracks, so Merlin going to be the mid laner for Smileyface, and honestly, that is a really great pick to round them out.
It is a really strong pick. I know that Merlin's kind of gotten the ban hammer a couple of times, but I don't think you could tell that from playing against him. He still does a ton of damage, has control from Arcane, the burn, quite literally from the fire stance is really strong as well, and then the poke in that ice stance a little bit unrivaled. So I think that Merlin could certainly still be strong. The only problem is that on the other side, now a Chronos has been locked in, and now some questions start to arise. Where's this Chronos potentially going here for this team? I really would think that the Uller would be going over to the long lane for Arkle, but Chronos could be going to him too.
I think that Chronos is more of a Zeros god than an Arkle god. I think that honestly they could go either way, like you said, but if I'm looking at it, I think Chronos does at least have something to capitalize there, being with a Camazotz and also being directly up against a Nemesis. If she throws the Divine Judgment on you, you just press the rewind button, and basically the entire duration of that ultimate is going to be wasted up by the time that you're spinning around in your little ball. So at that same time, it's going to be good looks for you if you're up against the Nemesis a lot. But Khepri to round us out, I think that's a good call from them. It's got some basically high clear, but that also means that Kumakarna is going to the solo lane.
Yeah, it's going to be a double Guardian composition from Smileyface here now, and up against the Hercules from Belt Slap, the Camazotz, which can a lot of the times feel like it's on the line between jungle and warrior with all the damage he can take. That's going to make life hard on Smileyface. I know they've got the peel, I know they've got the res to get them out of these dangerous situations, but who's the brawler? Who's going to be on that front line there for them that can compete with all this damage that's being put out by Belt Slap?
I mean, it's got to be the Nemesis, right? She's going to kind of be in and out of the fight, and with the Khepri there to be able to give her that Scarab's Blessing, it's going to be nice to be able to give a second chance of life to who has to be kind of your hard carry, the one to really push both of these carries, being the Braum and the Merlin, over into the late game. So honestly, I think it's going to be on the back here of Xaylia to be able to push this even further.
Yeah, they're going to need a lot, I think, out of this Nemesis pick in particular to really make this work. And I think if the idea is to try and burn maybe one target down, then perhaps that can do it. Either way, though, Game 1 of the Circuit Playoffs is about to kick off.
Thank you so much, Finch and Lermy. Myself, Gormizer, down here with Mifflin. But before we jump too far into it, chat, Hinduman is trying this new interactive script that's going to be going on. You're going to see a poll come up over there, and you can vote as to who you think is going to win. See if you can affect the day and the outcome. I don't know if that's actually going to make a difference, but Mifflin, I'll poll you the exact same question. Belt Slap had me going there. You get Yamoja, you get the Uller, you get a Camazotz, and it's kind of hard to bet against you, but then they lock in this Chronos, so I want to know, who do you think is going to be able to control this game?
Look, that Chronos could have been anything. He could have not loaded into the game, in fact. I would still put my money on a Belt Slap. These guys are so veteran. They're so strong. They've been playing level-headed every step of the way. These guys, they have it. They've got aggression in the duo lane. Just take a peek at it. Yamoja and Uller. What tools does Smileyface have to deal with the aggression? Trixtank is allowed to play as far up as he wants for the entirety of the game.
I mean, you've got this obnoxiously controlling duo lane over here. Already we're seeing the impact of that. I mean, Kepri's getting, his metal tested right now with all of the shots Arkel's hitting. But you also have to give this, and I don't know if I saw it in a Zero stream, if I've seen him play it maybe competitively at some point, but this is not a foreign pick to him either, running the Cronus in this mid lane. And no matter what, it's still Cronus. The minute he hits, what would you say, 25 minutes? He's going to hit like a truck.
Around level 12, the second he gets that second active online, it's going to be so hard for anyone on Smileyface to lock him down. It's going to be on Mogao finding that epic uppercut, some sort of huge form of CC. You got to burn through the beads first. You got to get through Trixtank's healing. You got to get through that rewind time. Zeros has a lot of survivability, and with the jungler that Smileyface drafted, this Nemesis, that's a terrible matchup. She's got no way to stick to him.
That was the other thing that kind of threw us for the loop. The Xaylia pickup in this Nemesis, maybe really good at trying to help deal with Trixtank, maybe pull some of those protections away, for the Hercules. But realistically, we haven't seen a lot of Nemesis. Is there any way that Xaylia can get, feasibly ahead here, especially above a Camazotz?
She's going to be looking to hard farm the jungle. I expect we see some really aggressive splitting. She's going to take as much as she can from the mid laner. She's looking to get that lead online early. We used to think of Nemesis as one of those late game hyper carries. You look to get Stone Cutting Sword, maybe a Rage, maybe a Deathbringer so you can crit in the late game. But right now with recent changes, she's starting to lean a little bit towards that ability-based jungler. She's got a little bit less time on that slice and dice that comes up every 9 seconds. With some additional CDR, she can get that up pretty often. But that said, her late game isn't as strong as it used to be. She's looking to fight around level 6.
Oh, and right now they're going to look to fight around level 3. Trixtank caught out, but he's going to be able to dash himself away. Xaylia is going to be able to stick to him. That double dash working well. A good stun, though, for self-peel. They don't even need to take the fight. Belt slap, get on out of there. I think showcasing why 82% of you think they are going to win. Good mechanics, as well as keeping their heads about them. And, I mean, you had called out level 6. This level 3 gank doesn't go the way they want it to. Now Mogao may be biting off more than he can chew. Can Camazotz maybe find some kills this early on?
Camazotz can find kills at every phase of the game, but Johnny's playstyle has always been, I'm looking to hit level 5, I'm looking to get my boots online, and then I'll start looking for the aggression. Right now, he's been the beneficiary of, well, Nemesis went for a dual lane gank, got nothing for it, was forced to back to base. Johnny's already got about a half-level lead, he's backed, got boots too, he's been able to clear out the enemy's blue buff, and now he's backing up to his own. There's so much farm left on the map that Johnny should be hitting level 6 around the time Smileyface's jungler Xaylia hits level 5.
We look at this, and realistically, I think a lot of people see the name power that Belt Slap commands. Maybe the fact that they were 10-0 during their second phase also helps this a little bit, but they are the team to beat. When it comes down to Europe, this is the team that you have to overcome. And right now, having 3 of the strongest picks, just, I think, in Smite, period, is going to be difficult to overcome. And so my eyes are more or less on Xaylia. I think Nemesis, she's always been one of my favorite assassins, and I want to feel some impact from it, but a lot of it is going to be around, well, ganks like this. You had called it out, hit level 5, hasn't quite finished the boots, but Johnny's ready to go in, and Arkel looks to try and get the stun to help lock them down. They really want to get rid of E-Chrome, and he's even going to dive under the tower here. Bat out of hell, going to get activated. He's looking for the last little jump. It's going to force the shell out either way, so maybe no first blood, and actually maybe forced to fall away since Arkel's so low. Maybe no kills coming out over in the duo lane. Johnny locked down. The arrows are going to be good, but Arkel able to eke out that first blood just before the tick damage gets rid of Johnny. So they still maintain that claim. But Johnny maybe not as strong as he thought he was going to be.
E-Chrome caught a classic case of tunnel vision there. He said, oh wait, Johnny's ult's down, he doesn't have beads, let's find it, get the abduct, I'm going to land some autos, that's free first blood. Arkel's, he's been around for a while, he knows what he could do. Hail of arrows, bladed arrows, that's all it's going to take to put this man down. That's going to be first blood with the jungler trade. I would still say Belt Slap comes out ahead.
And not only that, but I think Johnny just maybe had that one switch that you never want to have flipped in a jungler, which is his speed was just taken away from him. You don't want to do that to a guy playing Camazotz in the jungle. I think this is going to be an interesting one to see how it's going to work out for Xaylia of all things. Really good call, I think, to get aggressive and steal some of that farm away, but again, I don't expect to see a huge impact from this. Level 6 is coming up here now for Xaylia, just ticked over into it. Where, if you are this Nemesis, are you looking to put pressure? Do you go to the duo lane and try to shut down Trix? Is it a solo lane gank? Or is Zeros the only one that you can really pick on?
Look, if I'm Xaylia, and I hate saying it as a jungler, I'm playing as passively as possible. If you take a peek at Smileyface's entire draft, it's all counter-engage focused. Lamogao is looking for someone to step up a little bit too far, find the Mez, find the epic uppercut. Silence is waiting for them to start diving his team so he can look for the revive, maybe abduct in the backline, and then this Nemesis, the ultimate comes in, Retribution, shred away that defense, kill a frontliner, and then look for the engagement. Xaylia, on this Nemesis, doesn't really have any ways to start the fight on his own. I mean, if you think about it, he's got a dash, a secondary dash, a slow, and another slow. That's really it. There's no engagement factor out of this Nemesis. She's just got to wait for opportunities to come to her.
But man, you won't be able to escape her if you get caught out. But the problem is getting into that position where you have to escape her, I think, is going to be just difficult for Belt Slap. Once Trickstank starts joining into these fights, you've got that heal coming online. It's going to be interesting, I guess, just the dynamic of the team fight for Smileyface and how that unrolls. But it does kind of feel like, well, at least for, I would maybe say 3/5, maybe even more of their draft. They kind of want to play the PvE part for the first, well, it's already been 7 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, maybe another 5 added onto that until they hit the 15-minute mark. But once we start seeing the impact specifically, I think, from Trickstank making rotations or using his ult to lock someone down, that's when you have to start having a more active engagement from Smileyface. As of right now, I don't feel it. I don't feel the impact, and I'm still looking for it. Meanwhile, Belt Slap seem happy.
And they should be. They have these ticking time bombs on their team, and they've got the early game aggression. With this Kamazas in the jungle, Belt Slap can look for a fight anywhere on the map the second his ultimate's back online. Zeros is going to be an absolute menace come late game, as is Arkle. Julio's got fantastic backline disruption, and Trickstank is Yamoja. Do I need to say any more than that? I don't think so, but we will. He's got the long-range stun. He's got the mobility for his entire team. Walls, heals, he's got it all. Whereas Smileyface, I'm concerned about their late-game team fight. How are they going to commit and finish kills? It's all on Brats to find that burst damage.
Not exactly the initial strong suit you think of. Merlin can do a lot, but, you know, a lot of it can be tick over time for some of his damage. So he's going to have to upfront a lot of it and rely on the CC that his team is bringing to make sure it locks it down. Like you said, it's kind of difficult to lock anyone down. Trickstank has great peel. Zeros is, especially once he hits level 12, like you highlighted earlier, going to be probably the most difficult to kill God in the game, unless you can just truly lock him down. But with the level lead that he's slowly accruing, a little bit of experience here and there, keeping him maybe just steps ahead of this Merlin, it's going to be difficult as time goes on. And as far as Belt Slap are concerned, even though they're down technically in gold right now, this is kind of a slow-paced game. They're ready to take it at the same pace Smileyface are, because they don't have any stress on them for late game.
Normally, if I were just talking about a game in general with Belt Slap having this draft, I would say that Smileyface needs to get involved now. They've got a slight lead. They want to push it forward. But again, just looking at their draft, I'm not sure where they can go to look for fights reliably. They have to wait for Belt Slap to get aggressive, which isn't a far-off bet. We know that Belt Slap loves that W key. Every time we watch them, they're trying to make an example of their enemies. Maybe that's what Smileyface is looking for. They're looking for that aggressive playstyle that Belt Slap is known for, and they have this huge counter-engagement comp. But right now, Belt Slap seems to realize that we can do whatever we want. If they want to just play it slow, we actually benefit more from it, and Belt Slap's just sitting in their lanes, farming up, clearing out their jungle, and seeing what they can do.
So it's been a hot minute since I've seen Hercules be anything other than an aggressive support. So Julio bringing him over into the solo lane already maybe changes a little bit of the style, but even his build is kind of catching me off guard here. How do you feel about this talisman coming in right after the boots?
It tells me that he's going to the I want to go fast school. He's going to get a little bit of an additional magic defense, deal with that Merlin. You know he's going to want to sit on him the second those team fights start up. But short of that, we might see a Winged Blade come out next, a Ritual Dagger. This man's trying to go fast.
Well, Belt Slapper dancing around Smileyface's jungle. A lot of little poke here and there, more or less coming from Brats, making sure that no one can get too aggressive without, well, again, taking some damage in return. But not enough aggression from Belt Slap to break out into a fight there. I was waiting for the moment that it was going to start up, that someone was going to maybe either take a step too far or just commit for them. But again, it feels like they are very much in the wait and see how it unfolds here. Because as you had mentioned, Smileyface have a very good counter fight. when it comes down to it. What exactly do you expect to see? Like, if anyone on Belt Slap goes in, is it going to be too much, or can they take these, even fights without having it kind of thrown back in their face?
In this pre-team fight phase, I imagine the only one that's going to be looking for aggression is Johnny. And as long as he's fighting wherever I Silenced isn't, he's got pretty decent kill potential, as long as he's got the backup that he needs. But if that Khepri is around, Scarab's Blessing comes through, you're likely going to have to trade out Bat Out of Hell just so you can get out of that situation alive. There's not really much that they could do outside of that. If Arkle's left alone with E-Chrome in his lane, that's going to be a huge contention point for Smileyface. This matchup is already slightly difficult for Rom, since you just get hit by the axe one time, you're either losing your beads or you're losing your life, and Arkle got First Blood and a little bit of an early XP lead.
And already trying to work on those stacks for the Transcendence. So maybe lifesteal in favor of E-Chrome, but like you said, if you're stunned, you can't really hit your shots to then get the advantage from that lifesteal. So a lot of potential solo kills coming out over here if they want to get aggressive. But again, it feels like they're... The only word I can use to describe Belt Slap right now just feels relaxed, right? They don't feel like they have any tension in their play. Nothing's forcing them to make a move, nothing's causing them any real distress, but that lead, while it's still small, is still in favor of Smileyface. It's something that maybe they need to work on trying to dissipate overall. Experience definitely going the way of the blue team, though, and with Belt Slap having that much control, it's just a matter of time, right? I feel like realistically at 12 minutes in, I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm wondering when it's going to happen that they just decide, okay, now we're going to try to win.
You better believe the next team fight's going to be around the Gold Fury. Whoever wins it out is going to pull the first real lead of the game, and we might even be looking at a double objective. I'm thinking that we're going to see Smileyface group up around the gold for the defense after Belt Slap engages it. Then the fight breaks out, Gold Fury drops, they might move to Pyromancer afterward, especially now that we're 12 minutes in, they're starting to level up. These cooldowns on these respawn timers are getting longer and longer. Now every single fight is going to mean more than it would have a little bit earlier in the game.
And a 2-level lead over there in the solo lane. Maybe the biggest difference will be the fact that you've got Blink Teleport online here for Mogao versus Blink and Thorns online for Julio, which mainly means to me that Mogao potentially making bigger rotations for his team can be on this side of the map and still make it back to lane if he needs to. Well, you had called it out. Gold Fury started up here by Smileyface. You've mentioned their counter fight potential. They're going to be trying to start the regular fight, and there's not even going to be one. They're just going to be able to take that Gold Fury clean out from under the nose of Belt Slap. I think Trixtank sniffed it out at the very end, but that was a really good get in, sneak it, and get out, execute from Smileyface.
I'm pretty sure Belt Slap knew about that the entire time. They had wards covering the rotation path in there, and Brat's going in just about completely He got his abilities out in the Gold Fury, and that's all he could possibly do. That's a very risky play. They need this Merlin to be able to deal that huge magical damage in the engagements, but Belt Slap was just a little bit slow on the uptake. Now Pyromancer being looked at. Lamogal in range defends.
Oh, and he's going to get locked down. All of the CC they could throw out goes into him, but he uses that ult, just going to give him that immunity and a little bit of peel to get on out of there. But there's going to be his second relic, the Blink used on the disengage. And now it's just the zone game from Belt Slap as they start up this Pyromancer one more time. Half health is where it's going to be sitting at, and doesn't look like Smileyface are really big on trying to fight this one, so that should be going their way. So objective for objective, Gold Fury may be valued a little bit higher than that Pyromancer. But I think showcasing, more importantly, that they're still not out of it, and maybe kind of chose not to fight in the Gold Fury pit for whatever reason.
Look, if you are worried about an early engagement, you know you've got the late game, you can absolutely give up an early Gold Fury, especially if Pyromancer is on the table. They only go down about a little bit under 1,000 gold. We're looking at about 500 in favor of Smileyface. That's not a big deal. Split between 5 people, it's literally nothing. That's 2 potions per person, maybe a ward. It super doesn't matter at this point, and Smileyface is still on this timer. They have to contend with that raw damage, that dive output, that late game hyper carry inside of zeros. Arkle's been left completely alone in this lane, as has E-Chrome. They've both been farming up for the late game. But Smileyface still, they haven't shown us that they're able to win a fight. I still have no idea what they're looking for once these engagements start up properly. It's going to likely be Lamogal just trying to peel his backline. Bratz throws out abilities while he runs away. Silence waiting for that Scarab's Blessing. But there's absolutely no way that Smileyface can engage on an objective and take it first. They have to be playing that reactionary play style. They have to wait for Belt Slap to make a mistake. and I'm just not sure that they're going to.
All right, now it's going to be Trixtank looking to try and set up in mid lane, looking for the stun here onto Eye Silence, and they're going to be able to find it, but the Khepri at this point seems a little too tanky for them to just burn through, well, as easily, I think, as they had hoped. Zero still needs a couple of items, maybe a little bit more time to get those levels online before he hits like a true late-game Chronos. But that doesn't stop Arkle from hitting like a true, well, level 15 Uller at this point. Echrome taking that trade, and you had already mentioned how this was going to favor Arkle pretty much from the get-go. Now, I think seeing it in action just solidifies that even more so, especially when the rotations come out. Arkle's someone that you're going to have to contend with.
Yeah, you either lose your beads or you lose your life. Echrome decided to lose out on the beads this time, but now it's going to be a little bit more dangerous for him to just sit in lane in general, which is why we're seeing Smileyface start to rotate over, see if maybe Belt Slap sticks out a little bit too long, but the disengages through. Except for Trixtank, where you going, buddy?
Yeah, I mean, he's wandering around, the tower's gone, but he's all by himself up here. Now Echrome's going to spot it out. Silence is in the area, and Khepri is able to just pluck him right back into the fight. There's going to be the Nemesis ult as well, peeling off those protections. The lockdown's going to be good, and the snipes are going to connect. But Zalia, who gets credit for the kill, Arkle comes in to try and save the life of his support. Kind of the opposite role that they're supposed to have. The Age is going to be forced out here. He's going to get a good stun, but it's not going to save his life. Zalia is going to be able to pick up 2 clean kills there. Trixtank maybe overstaying his welcome. Now Johnny is going in for a 1v2. Bat out of hell forced. He can stay alive and try to get away here. He's forced to run back to his team. Mogao looking to lock down Julio. It just seems like a series of events here up against Belt Slap, and Julio lucky to have that healing that Hercules brings, but it's still not going to be enough. He's going to end up going down here. Smileyface are just picking up kills systematically as they run through Belt Slap.
Yeah, Trix's eyes must have glazed over as he started to approach that tier 2 tower. Smileyface was already grouped up around it. You saw that Smileyface was also starting to back up, go back towards mid. Then they see, is Trixtank on our tier 2 alone? Let's head over. Arkle's probably rolling his eyes, says, oh, Trix is at it again. Let me see if I can peel him out. Loses his life in exchange. Then we lose Julio as well. Zeros makes it out with his life. That's just a terrible exchange. I said that I wasn't really expecting Belt Slap to make any major mistakes, but that's the first real big opening for Smileyface. Luckily for Belt Slap, Goldtree hadn't respawned just yet. Fire Giant being on the opposite side of the map means that Smileyface really didn't have the opportunity to head over there. So all that really comes of it is the XP gap that Belt Slap had established in their favor. So now it's leaning a little bit more towards Smileyface. Gold, again, going more towards Smileyface, but 1,500 at 18 minutes, it still is anyone's game.
It's just nice to see, and I think, you know, I can at least say it for myself and maybe chat a little bit as well, but I was ready to count Smileyface out of this from the get-go. I think showcasing they have a lot more. Primal Fury started up, and once again trying to isolate and peel off Trixtank. They force the ult, the River's Rebuke comes down, and that's going to be falling through. Zalia gets aggressive there, but it doesn't matter. It's the zoning that is important. They get this Primal Fury, which is going to make it a lot easier for those rotations. To the Fire, to the Pyromancer. They don't need the fight. They just got the last one. They get the objective, and they get on out of there.
Belt Slap hasn't grouped up as 5 to contend with anything that Smileyface has done a single time this game. Every single engagement is 2 members of Belt Slap here, maybe 3 members over there, whereas Smileyface have been playing together, they've been playing hard the entire time. It's always a 5-man roaming deathball, and it's working out for them. Right now, Belt Slap seem like they may have just lost the narrative a little bit. They had the plan, okay, we'll wait for late game. Zeros is going to become a Chronos at level 20, and he's just going to win the match for us. But now, Bratz is a level up, maybe a level and a half. His build is way further along than Zero's is. And Zero's decides to go for the attack speed build. He's got the Demonic Grip, likely going to be a Ring of Hakate next to match that Pythags piece and that lifesteal build he's going for. It's a lot of sustain, but his damage output isn't nearly as high as it could have been.
It's going to be interesting. I think, you know, maybe towers at this point quaking in their boots, but if I'm silenced, maybe not as worried as I should be here, unless Arkle's in the fight. And right now, you can see Arkle's a little bit slow on the rotation. It's a 4v5 as of right now for Belt Slap while they wait for their Hunter to come in. Pyromancer is what they're dancing around. Started up a couple of times here by Smileyface, and already at half health. Good control onto Mogao, though, is going to lock him down, but there's going to be the counter engage. Mogao knocks him up into the air. River's Rebuke comes down, and that's looking for the Pyromancer. Going to go down the way of Belt Slap, but what about the fight there after Mogao? It's a little bit low. The snipes are coming down, connecting onto Johnny. There's going to be the slice and dice, but it's not going to find the kill. Forces the beads, It's going to be a full retreat from Belt Slap. They do get Pyro, so they did get something out of this. Julio caught out before he could get to the tier 2 and the safety with his team. Under the Ice Storm here, locked away, pushed up against the wall. E-Chrome going to be able to get credit for that kill. Mogal, full health, back in the fight, ready to keep going for his team. And now it's just the lock-up. Zeros uses the rewind, puts him in a bad spot. He's already going to get taken down, and one shot from Bratz is going to be able to eliminate him. E-Chrome taking a lot in return, but there's that Kepriel, that revive. It's going to be so helpful for Smileyface. They can just back off, taking a 2-for-none trade. It's 6-1 Mifflin here at 21 minutes in. They get a tower on the back foot as well. That's just a good fight for Smileyface.
They played it incredibly well. Julio had a lot of huge engagement there. He's able to disrupt the back line very well. He hit 4 people with the boulder, but it wasn't quite enough. Ice Silence being able to hold on to that Scarab's Blessing until after the actual engagement, until after they were done diving tier 2, is absolutely indicative of what's going to cost Belt Slap this match. They're not able to deal damage. Their damage output from their mid laner isn't nearly enough right now, so there's nothing that Smileyface has to be afraid of. They group up on the objective aggressively, tank up every bit of damage that Julio puts out. Johnny wasn't able to dive the backline because Zalia was looking at him, and there's just no way that they can force out this Scarab's Blessing, which means there's no way for them to take a fight.
Well, this Fire Giant's at about 1/8 HP. It's going to be going down here. Smileyface are able to secure it, but again, it is Belt Slap getting in their face and trying to burn them down. E-Chrome goes down, but Johnny trades his life in order to get the kill. Now they're all on the full retreat. Bratz still has a lot of health. Zalia and the rest are all at about halfway down. That's going to be the call-off. They're not going to chase the kills here, Belt Slap. They're going to look at the objectives, but that's going to be a big rotation. They're going in looking for the damage onto Julio and the crew, and they're going to be able to lock down Zeros one more time. No rewind available for them, no relics either. That's going to be another kill picked up for them. So they trade it 1-for-1, then pick up the Chronos one more time. They lose their tier 1 in right, and I think they're still pretty happy with that trade.
They've got to be 4 members strong with Fire Giant. You lose out on your ADC having it, which is a big deal. It's going to really impact the amount of damage they deal to these structures. It's going to make it a little bit harder to siege. But having it on your tanks, having it on your backline divers, I would say is equally, if not more important. That sustain is going to be absolutely huge. But Belt Slap just holding down the W key.
Yeah, they do not seem to want to slow down. But a little bit of damage from that Merlin's going to make them rethink getting as aggressive as they have been. As it looks like Zeros is going to start itemizing into a little bit of protection there at the end of his build, considering the last 2 deaths have happened in, what, the last 2 minutes, it feels like, for him. So a little rough play overall for him. Just a cloak as of right now, so we'll see what it evolves into. But this counterplay, the lockdown from Smileyface, I'll admit, like, the theory has always been there. We were talking about it early on, about how, it could help. It could slow them down. But seeing it in actuality, I mean, Smileyface are playing this to the T.
Yeah, they've been the aggressor on each of these objectives, but if you look at how the fights start, it's always a couple of members of Belt Slap run in. They're like, oh no, the Fire Giant. Oh no, the Pyromancer, the Gold Fury. We got to get in there. We got to stop it. And then immediately what happens? Smileyface says, oh, you're engaging on us. I know that we're on the objective, but you're coming to me right now? Lamogal puts you to sleep. Epic uppercuts you. Silenced abducts. Bratz is just throwing down huge AoE damage to make the rest of Belt Slap have to respect that space, whereas Zalia just gets to swing his autos for free. That counter engage that they have is so absolutely strong because Belt Slap can't find the burst damage to put anyone down, and they've got Ice Silence on this Kepri to make sure that if any damage really does come through, well, we don't care. He's got 2 health bars. Good luck doing it again.
Now, an Oni Fury to boot, so that's going to give them a little bit of, I would say, unnecessary pressure. They already have a lot here on Smileyface, but they're going to get a little extra just to be safe. It's going to be the split-pushing Zeros that tries to save the day. Unfortunately, not able to get that tier 2, so he doesn't even get to trade it out, even though he committed over there. And they're laying in wait, trying to set up an ambush in the jungle for someone like Zalia, who might try to bite off more than they can chew. Bratz, though, again, a lot of damage over and through the walls. So it's not a good spot for Belt Slap, and I think this is the best time to remind people that, I mean, in all of Phase 2, Belt Slap didn't drop a game. They haven't dropped a game since the last circuit playoffs. So it'd be a big deal for them to lose here, and even more so to lose to Smileyface coming from the SOC.
And if I'm Smileyface, I'm absolutely giddy at this point. Let's say that Belt Slap went out here. Smileyface can likely, or they're going to expect to, or at least try to, make it back to finals through the losers bracket, and they'll have to face down Belt Slap again, hypothetically. But if they can take them out here, that is such a huge weight off of their bracket, knowing that, okay, well, we're going to have winner side, Belt Slap falls down to losers, we don't have to worry about them until much later, and we're going to have the advantageous state once we get to those finals. It's absolutely imperative for Smileyface to look to put them down early on, and this is a fantastic start for them. 7,000 gold up, 25 minutes in. But right now, this next Fire Giant is going to be a huge determining factor. If Belt Slap get Fire Giant, I would say that they'd likely be favored to win the game just because of how strong their siege is. If Smileyface gets it, it's Belt Slap has to defend. Their defense not nearly as strong as their offense. Smileyface might be able to run away with it. This next Fire Giant is going to be absolutely huge.
And that's actually a great pivot into what I was thinking, which is realistically, if Belt Slap win this, it's kind of the opposite of what you were just saying for Smileyface. Smileyface, you knock Belt Slap down early and you feel great. But if Belt Slap turn game one around from what feels like almost a surefire controlling victory for you, that has to be mentally draining going into even just a second game, let alone potentially trying to fight your way through 3 if you are able to push this to the limit. And then getting knocked down to that lower bracket's going to be rough, so you have to play this carefully. And again, do what they've been doing, which is wait on Belt Slap to engage. Right now, they're going to be engaging Zaylia. It takes a lot of damage early on, but so does Arkle. The snipes are going to be coming down from E-Chrome. He's going to be able to connect on all 3. No one's low enough for it to make a huge difference. So it's going to be 1 ult down for Smileyface. Meanwhile, the beads burned on the other side for Arkle, so maybe a little bit more of a position to jump in on this Hunter. But playing it a lot more carefully this time. Belt Slap aren't just holding W as they run into the Fire Giant pit.
I like it a lot more. It's a lot more patience. They're looking for engagement through this Hercules. Find the pull punch, display this team. I like it a lot. If anything, I would like it if Zeros maybe rotates through mids, tries to split push while Smileyface has the aggressive positioning around fire. A lot of what we saw earlier that went well for Belt Slap when Smileyface was 5-man grouped on left was Zeros moves up to the tier 2, forces a TP out, and Smileyface wasn't confident to fight as 4. They could keep doing this since that tier 1 tower is up in mid, and it would make it very easy for Belt Slap to commit to that tower, then rotate into the fight.
Alright, now it's Johnny pushing minions forward, and that tier 1 in mid you just highlighted is going to go down here. So it might not be the player you called out, but it is still the play you called out, with Johnny just kind of laying in wait, lurking in the shadows, waiting for his time to jump. And honestly, Camazot's in the backline might be scarier than anybody else back there, especially for someone like Bratz could get caught out here. And at this rate, the pace of this game, E-Chrome's going to have the snipes back up before anybody's able to truly get taken out of this. And yeah, with that ultimate coming back online, you have to deal with that extra bit of damage. It's, the same old Fire Giant fight we've seen, and the dance, I should say, we've seen. But the ward coverage, thankfully, Doug's highlighting there, is so much more in favor of Smileyface. They see pretty much this entire half of the jungle.
That is insane. Just the amount of raw map pressure that Smileyface has off of warding. Belt Slap realized, okay, well, we're losing the information battle. We have to back up here, and Smileyface absolutely know it. They can see your entire side of the jungle, so they're going to look to start up that Fire Giant, and it's burning fast.
I mean, there hasn't been a spot Julio has stood in the last 2 minutes that he hasn't been seen, but that's going to be the River's Rebuke from Trix Tank. They're going to be able to pull Smileyface off of the Fire Giant. Silent's going to be forced to ult himself to stay alive in the fight. The damage is still coming down. Mogal at about 1/4 HP. Silence at halfway through. They're going to be looking to go in on the tanks, but the blink push going to miss from Julio. Now it's Bat Out of Hell from Johnny in the backline to try and lock them down. Unfortunately, it's not enough damage for him. The snipes ring true from E-Chrome, and they're looking for the kill. Johnny's so low, it's going to be able to eke out of that one. Zaylia not able to commit that deep into the team of Belt Slap to find the kill, and that's going to be Smileyface still looking for the engage, but with an advantage now around the Fire Giant as Belt Slap are forced to fall back.
That fight was going well for Belt Slap when they had Zero's free casting on a Kumbhakarna, but no one was able to stop his back, and he TP's in for free.
Well, now they're going to be able to zone it. They get the Fire Giant, but again, the fight afterward is just as important. It's going to be a pluck onto Zeros. Silence is taking a lot of damage, and there's the rewind for Zeros, but it doesn't really save his positioning. He's still in the same spot. It's going to be a classic 2v2 over here. Unfortunately, the rest of the team for Smileyface turn around, and Johnny's going to be the first one to go down. E-Chrome picks up the second one there and finds Zeros. It's the tail that we saw just, 10 minutes ago, the last time a Fire Giant came up, truly. And it's big for Smileyface, except this time, they don't lose their Hunter in the process.
He's full health. They're all relatively healthy. Bratz is going to be the easiest target for Belt Slap to take down, but with only 3 members strong, I don't imagine this is going to be easy defense.
I mean, you have 4 members that have not died on your team right now. You're going into the Phoenix. You had already called it out. The aggression from Beltslap maybe a little bit stronger than their defense here, and now it's going to be truly tested. Trix Tank too low. Arkle takes a lot of damage in the process as well, forced to fall back, and that's going to cost them that right Phoenix. There's still a tier 2 in mid that's standing, so they might just strip away the jungle. And it was something that Doug had highlighted I think is worth mentioning, and maybe, getting your thoughts on. Mogao has been using these teleports so perfectly. We talked about the ward coverage, but so many times Mogao has been able to be impactful 2 places on the map or back in a fight, come back full health, and still fight with his team because he has that teleport. And unfortunately, Julio just hasn't been able to keep up.
He really can't. He doesn't have teleport. That's the main difference maker there. But Julio has something that Mogao doesn't. It's the sustain in his kit. He's been able to sit in these fights a lot longer than Mogao has, so he's having constant of pressure in each one of these engagements. I'll still say that in the last 2 or 3 team fights that Beltslap have taken, Julio has been the standout player for me in that he's been able to find these punches, he's been able to find the pools, he's had fantastic frontline presence. It's just that Smileyface drafted around that. They said, okay, well, we're looking for counter engagement. I don't care that Julio's in my face. That's exactly where I want him to be. They shred away his defense. They take away all of his mobility with CC. Mogao's been doing a fantastic job of just keeping his team alive. His epic uppercuts haven't been particularly aggressive, but what they have been doing is making sure that Bratz doesn't fall down. They make sure that Echrome has space to work with, and Smileyface really have just been playing incredibly well. All of this that's been happening in the last 20 minutes, I want to tie it back to that one misplay from Trix Tank, stepping up to the tier 2 tower on his own. Immediately loses out on Gold Fury, Pyromancer. That's where the first Fire Giant comes from as well. Smileyface just looked for that one mistake and optimized on it perfectly.
I mean, it's exactly what you would expect from a team at this caliber. I just don't think anyone expected it today. Beltslap maybe being at the top of that list coming into it. And maybe also, striving for the argument of comfort picks versus the tier list. Not even able to get the pluck here. Julio tried his best for the knockup push, but he's not going to be able to find it. Now they're forced to defend. All towers are gone on the side of Beltslap. 2 Phoenixes are going to be remaining, and it's a 4-1 split here as they look to try and pressure in on right. Julio's going to get pulled back, and the damage is just going to be true from Echrome. He's going to be able to burn him down no problem, and now it makes it even easier. Zero's forced to rewind, so he stays alive here. It's not going to be an easy stay. 5-man strong. They walk on into the 4v5. Arkle takes a lot of damage. The Aegis is forced, but it's not enough to keep him alive. Now the lockdown onto Trix Tank's going to get him to halfway. They're forced to fall back under the Titan, as it looks like Smileyface are trying to decide whether they want the Phoenix or the Titan. They're going to run in and go for the kill and try to get first blood in the tournament this weekend. They're going to be able to lock down Trix Tank. Once again, the damage is going to ring true. Up into the sky goes Zeros, and when he comes down, Johnny is gone. The Titan goes down, and that's going to be Smileyface walking away with game 1.
Look, I wasn't expecting it. 82% of the people in chat weren't expecting it. I don't think anyone expected that. The early game was really looking like Beltslap was going to be the beneficiary. 12 minutes of really no combat when you have late game hypercarries on your squad. But instead, it's just one misplay completely turns the match around.
I mean, you're coming into this. Beltslap have the name power. They're 10-0 in Phase 2. They get 3 of the top picks in Smite, period, and they come into it and unfortunately just aren't able to make it work. So I can't break it down. I can't figure it out. Luckily, we have the desk to do exactly that. So Finch, Lermy, what happened?
Yeah, don't worry, Gore. We got you covered in this regard. This was Beltslap making some uncharacteristic mistakes, and then Smileyface opportunistically capitalizing at every opportunity. It's interesting. A lot of these games you can point back and you can go, these are moments where I think Smileyface did a lot of really good things, but I think this is more that we really didn't see Beltslap do any of the right things. Lermy, I'm very curious about your read on all of this here as well, because as far as I could tell here, this really wasn't even so much that Smileyface did anything particularly crazy. It felt like to me that Beltslap kind of never did any of the right stuff.
Yeah, it really seemed like very uncharacteristic of how they typically play. We like to talk about how Beltslap is pretty much the top tier aggressors of the EU SCC, but as you can see here, it just didn't work out that way. It really seemed like something was off. We went back on it, and Mifflin has touched on this before, where Trix Tank getting caught out by that tier 2 tower up in the left-hand side really was the catalyst that started off Smileyface going in the right direction. And also just the fact that Smileyface got that early Gold Fury uncontested, mind you, just really started them off on the right foot, and clearly they knew how to pressure out towards the late game. And I want to mention this in particular, Brost really brought the damage, almost 40,000, and we didn't say anything about him before, but he deserves the recognition here. I mean, that's a ton of damage compared to literally everyone else on the board.
And not just that, but compared to the amount of time that passed in the game, too, you're 100% right, I think, to point out that that's pretty absurd, all things considered. So excellent work there from Brost. And maybe I'm not giving Smileyface quite enough credit, but just kind of look back at the evidence we thought throughout this game. This was where Trix Tank went way too far forward on his own. That brings Arkle into a bad situation where Arkle dies as well. And then I'm pretty sure Julio dies in the back of this play as well. You mentioned it already, but I believe 2 early Gold Furies went down without really any contest from Belt Slap. And then even the early game gank that we saw as well over into the long lane that they looked for early with Johnny, it didn't quite make sense to me. The shell and the beads were still there, and he continues with the ultimate, even diving underneath the tier 1 tower. They do get first blood, but it cost Johnny his life. There were just a couple of moments throughout the game that really felt to me like Belt Slap just weren't even... That was not normal Belt Slap. They were forcing fights they didn't need to. They weren't in fights they need to be there for. I don't think they did really any of the things they need to do to win a game at this level.
I think that really they need to just go back and kind of settle down. They are probably very surprised that they even took the loss there to begin with. I mean, like you said, they were 10-0 in this past split of the SEC and have only really been taken down once before, and that was just a game. They won the last circuit, I believe. So even at that point, they need to kind of go back to the drawing board, maybe take a look at their draft a little bit. We talked a little bit like Kronos is kind of a question mark pick, and maybe even the Camazotz could be kind of addressed there, because I think that Johnny, he loves his Camazotz for sure, but it didn't really play into the way that they were. They didn't play aggressive, and Camazotz in the late game doesn't do the same things that Nemesis does in the late game, so maybe a switch up on that will be really helpful for them.
Yeah, I think you're making a good point there, Lermy, as we move into the picks and bans for game number 2, which is that Belt Slap kind of drafted as if they didn't want to play throughout the early to the mid game really at all, did they? They played very passively throughout the beginning of the game. We already mentioned the Gold Fury fights they did not show up for. They did go grab the Pyromancer in response to that initial Gold Fury, I believe. So obviously you can respond without being there to fight. They certainly were still doing some things well. It's just that this did not seem like the normal Belt Slap to me at all. And I do want to make sure one more time I'm giving credit to Smileyface, because probably the only 5 people that thought they were winning that first game was them. And they absolutely were able to make it happen there in that match. So Belt Slap have to kind of tighten up, I think, a little bit here. Show us that they deserve the praise we were giving to them back in that pregame.
I agree with you. And taking a look at these bans here, we're seeing Smileyface go back for the Persephone, but the interesting thing here is that they're taking away I Silenced Khepri, and also the Kumbhakarna straight away from Mogao. So those 2 very tanky Guardians that provide a lot of peel and help for their own carries, now gone. So I'm glad that they're taking this approach, because those 2 were definitely a problem.
And it's surprising, too, because Julio, I think, had a 2-level lead over Mogao in the lane. The Hercules was 12, and the Kumbhakarna was level 10, was what I can just kind of think of as a good way to sort of demonstrate where that XP gap was during the lane. So the laning phase is not the problem. It's just that Julio was getting dramatically outvalued in those team fights. How many times did Julio force a pull into the push and then die afterwards without getting anything for it? It just felt like they were not in sync, so maybe they got to change something up.
I agree with you there. I think that when you're talking about putting Hercules into solo, it's kind of a different story than in support, because when you're picking him as support, it's kind of the same deal as picking a Yamoja. You want to have something that has a ton of early pressure to kind of counteract the fact that your ADC might not have that early pressure. So the fact that they're kind of just sitting until level 12 and 13, like Hercules is still very strong at that point, but it doesn't work the same as putting it in somewhere in support, where it would have a lot more effects in the early game.
And that's exactly where they struggled, in that early game where they weren't able to find very much value at all until eventually they were too far behind, and it would only take that one mistake we saw from Trix to really put that game out of reach for them. So hopefully they'll make some adjustments here. Belt Slap are back in that first pick spot, and this time around they're going with the Ganesh. I imagine that's going to be for Trix Tank. And isn't this a bit odd too? I always thought of Trix Tank as someone who made his name playing really aggressive picks, but now we're seeing potentially the Yamoja into the Ganesh. Is this normal for what you'd consider Trix's identity?
I don't know. I think depending on his team, and like we've talked about, it's full of a ton of carries. So at least
That's
in
true.
this kind of team comp, he doesn't really need to push the button on the aggressive stuff because that's exactly what Johnny likes to do, we thought. But in general, in the last game, that's not what we saw. So, I mean, going back for Smileyface to this Kuzenbo ROM, like they're on things that they're comfortable with, and clearly it worked last time. So to see them go back to it again is a really good look. But this Giannis hover, it's quite interesting. And we've talked a lot about how Giannis kind of is in and out of the Pro League and other competitive spaces because it does have a lot of damage. He's a lot of potential. I'd say probably his potential is through the roof, probably one of the highest in the game of acting really well if they're able to be played well. But I don't know, it's not as consistent as maybe something we would see before, but Zeros has been going to these weird characters, so maybe this is it for him.
You're right that Giannis has that high ceiling. The problem is he also has a very low floor, right? I think that variance is the reason why we don't see Giannis picked up that much. But there are people who can control that variance. Herwin in the SPL comes to mind for me as one of those players that routinely gets high-end value out of Giannis. So Zeros, who's certainly a Herwin caliber player in my mind, I think could do the same thing with this Giannis pick here. It's a bit harder, I think. You have to make sure you're on point throughout the entirety of the game, but certainly something that he can get the max value of. One thing to note, though, is that we're now seeing this Nox being picked up by Smileyface. I believe this was banned out in game number 1, so I think we might find out what they were so worried about here in this game.
I'm excited to see because we haven't seen Nox at high-level play in what feels like forever. She seems to kind of really not exist in the meta, so this is certainly something different, but it seemed like Beltslap knew what they were up against, and maybe this time they decided, okay, we'll go against the Nox, just don't let them have the Khepri and the Kumba, and that can really be a good push for them. So they figure, okay, first game we'll see how we feel up against the tanks. This time, give the Nox up, we'll deal with it, we'll find some way around it.
Yeah, just not going to allow them to have all that control. Looks like Smileyface are going to go back to banning away some of Johnny's picks, though. The Dodgy and the Kali all removed from the table, so Beltslap going to have to go somewhere else to figure out what it is that they want to do in their jungle. But speaking of jungle, where do you think that this Nox is going to go? I mean, you wanted to go mid lane, but I know you yourself are a big Nox jungle fan.
Well, with the Nemesis locked in there, it's not going into the jungle for sure, but I will die on this hill. I think Nox is honestly a jungle pick that you could look for, but obviously, since Smileyface has done this before, they probably know that it's going somewhere else, and honestly, with the picks that they've gone for, it's probably going to mid, which is somewhat concerning because Nox kind of doesn't exist as a character until level 3, so as long as they're able to get that pressure with Witch and Nemesis, I mean, it's kind of concerning, right, because she doesn't have the best early clear either, especially not when compared to a Bakasura. I mean, this is one of Johnny's signature picks. So the fact that it's coming out at all is going to be really impressive to see him finally push this aggression.
Yeah, if you want to see Beltslap right the ship, this is certainly a way to get it done, right? Putting him on one of his most comfort picks. And that's what this whole draft kind of feels like to me, right? Julio is on tier. Bakasura for Johnny. This, and Zeros is on the Honest. This could very well be the sort of comfort pick, come back to basics moment here for Beltslap. But they've got to make sure they're executing on it because, as you mentioned, Brotst did 39,000 damage on this Merlin pick last game. So that means that Nox is going somewhere a little bit non-traditional.
It could go either support or solo right now because Kuzenbo also kind of acts as that flex. But if I'm them, I might be throwing it in support just because I feel like going up against a solo laner, letting Julio get fed on tier is not the way that I would like to see it. But it might also work out. Nox kind of does have a solid counter matchup into tier since it will cancel the dashes if he's going through them at that point. So who knows, honestly.
We used to see Dardes do the Nox support, so could that be what we're seeing happening here? Game number 2, after the surprising upset in game 1, is about to kick off.
Well, it is, in fact, a Nox that has been locked in, but it's Mogao on her this time around, so that will be a solo lane Nox into the tier like they were speculating. And remember, I believe you can vote in chat once again for who's going to win. And I'm excited to see what the percentages are this time around, chat, because Beltslap, with that 82% last time, didn't quite look like themselves, but now, as the desk had mentioned, is back on comfort picks. Mifflin, Kuzenbo, we've seen he's dipped his toes in. I can't argue with the Nemesis, the Merlin, because they did so well last game. The same thing can be said for the ROM. Talk to me about this, Nox.
Well, I'm glad that I prepped for this the best way I absolutely could, which is by watching Ducky's stream, the solo laner from Obey. This guy absolutely loves running this Nox solo. And I'm going to tell you right now, the strength of it is that it's a ranked game when he's playing it, so no one really addresses it. Mogao's going to have to contend with this Bakasura jungle. Her dash, yeah, that's irrelevant. You're crippled. You're going to be taking a ton of damage. I'm very worried for how this Nox is going to perform. And just to right another ship here, we heard Lermy Wormy address that maybe Nox jungle might be viable. She lied. Don't listen to her chat. That was an absolute lie. We were memeing 100%.
Good damage control. I like that. That's a very good statement to end that one on. Just because maybe she even works this game, maybe you don't go to Nox. You know, I'm just saying. Like, I personally do not enjoy playing against her. I'm sure a lot of that sentiment is shared, well, by most of the SMITE community. It'll be up to Julio this time to overcome that and try to make a big difference. But it also comes in and kind of showcases maybe a different dynamic over here. Specifically in solo, we've seen some assassins that have worked out over there. We mainly see warriors. Last game we got a guardian. But the only mage this year, at least, that has really made a mainstay over there in the solo lane has been Baron Samedi. So does Nox maybe have something that she can bring over there that makes her consistent enough? Like, do we expect to see this often, or is this pure and only a counter pick? And or just a Mogao pick?
I think it really might just be a Mogao pick. The main strength of Nox in Soul Lane is when you're backed up by your jungler, if Nox hits her combo, I don't care who you're playing as in your Soul Lane, you're likely going to die. If Nemesis shows up, Nox hits her entire combo, you're sitting there for likely 2 seconds just eating up all that Nemesis damage with the auto cancels that she gets from using her shield. That's a ton of damage that this tier is going to have to contend with. It's going to be hard to deal with, but that also means that if we really want to see Smileyface get value out of Mogao's Nox, we're going to have to see Xaylia also over in that Soul Lane, dedicating a lot of pressure, making sure that this tier falls down early. If tier and Nox are left alone completely, around level 6, Mogao's not going to be able to keep up with the sustain. The poke potential that tier has if he ever lands a Fearless is going to be absolutely crippling. I'm very worried. This is a high execution comp that Smileyface drafted, but it's also probably the most toxic comp I've ever seen. They've got Kuzumbo, they've got Nox. If they had a Loki mid or something like that, I probably would have just put it in a competitive ban or something like that to prevent it from ever happening again.
Well, it seems like not only has your maybe trust in Belt Slap been shaken, but also I think the chat's went from 82 to 56% overall. So the trust is still there, still favored overall in the matchup, but definitely I think Smileyface having a good showcase in Game 1 of what they're capable of doing, and that sometimes weird things, I think in Game 1 the weird thing was the Nemesis, but in Game 2 it's definitely this Nox. Well, they can work out for you. It just is how they end up working out for you. Mogao had a lot of really big teleports for me as that Kumbhakarna last game that made the very big difference. And a lot of this fight's around the Fire Giant. Nox maybe doesn't scream the same kind of CC, but she does have, you know, like you said, the silence, the lockdown, you hit your full kit. Worst case scenario, you have to back in a fight, you're able to teleport back in the late game. So I think a lot of the merits that Mogao brought last game are still there. But the problem realistically was that what we saw, you know, Johnny didn't really get to pick anything up early on. Julio, this is one of his signature picks. Zeros is on something that is going to be online much earlier than we're going to see out of a Kronos in mid lane. Beltslap have gone for comfort picks. Can Xaylia, can Bratz, Mogao, when he makes these rotations, hold up to the draft that Beltslap have picked up?
I think it's completely contingent on how well Johnny does in this early game, and a level 5 gank against level 4s, that's a good place to start.
He's going to go ahead and go in on this Kuzumbo, and the damage is reflecting back at him, but he doesn't seem to care. There's going to be the ult not only from him, but also from Arkle. They're going to be able to find those kills, lock down Silence, and get that first blood. This time around, not trading anything out in the process. They're going to even be able to jump in and potentially look for some jungle buffs as well to steal away and start Smileyface off on a completely different foot than last game.
I like that play from the Bakasura. He doesn't immediately go into the ultimate. He's trying to see, well, maybe we can just scare Silence into using his dash, and then I'll cancel it myself. And then he realizes, okay, Trix is in range. I can go ahead and use my ultimate. The second he gets out of it, he's going to look for the dash. Trix, he has the Silence, or he has his own dash to match it. I like that play, that coordination from Beltslap.
Well, Mogao biting off more than he can chew. Xaylia coming over for the rescue, and that's going to be a lot of damage onto Zeros. Forces the ult just to get him out of there. And honestly, I think they take that as a win. They grab a blue buff, they force out the ult, so no snipes will be coming through. Maybe it's not a kill, but they're still getting aggressive in the jungle. Silence is rotated over here alongside Trix Tank. They're going to do their best to strip anything and everything they can away from Johnny. Try to slow down that early game since he seems to be the essential piece for Belt Slap going forward, but things have come to a little bit of a slowdown, and hey, guess what? It's, 100 gold? Maybe not even, separating the two teams.
But a full level on the jungler at 5 minutes. He's level 6, Azalea's level 5. Yes, you invaded a bit of his jungle, blue and bat camps, but meanwhile, what was Johnny doing while you guys were tussling around a blue buff? He cleared out 2 mid waves by himself. That's a huge gold swing and XP swing in favor of himself. Johnny playing a little bit aggressive, a little bit selfish in this early game, but it might pan out for him. He goes for the early golden blade build. He might look for a stone cutting next, go the triple katana build. We might even see him go towards an executioner or maybe the boots, but right now, he's absolutely fine with where he's at.
I mean, a level ahead there, you're just slightly behind in mid, but I don't think that's affecting them too much. For a lot of this, it's, again, comfort that comes into the equation. It's something I think Smileyface had going for them last game, something that Belt Slap are going to have going for him this game. And Johnny has that ult available, and while everyone has one form or another of disengage to get away from him, I think being able to lock it down, especially roaming alongside Trickstank, might make the big difference. Wow. But you also have to wonder where you're going to get aggressive. That was beautifully played from Arkle just to stop Silenced, and now Trix is over here. I don't think they're going to turn anything around and make a huge play off of it, but just the idea that you're able to keep yourself safe showcases why Trix feels so confident roaming around.
I've never seen that interaction work like that. The Kuzumbo actually connects with his dash, but just the ending animation of Arkle's dash was able to stun him out of it. Clean play, and it's a lot of really confidence in himself to not use his beads there. The second I saw him get pushed, I expected we maybe at least see the beads trade, but instead, just keeps cool, calm-headed, make sure he doesn't trade out too much. Arkle playing it very well.
Just keeping himself alive is all he's gonna, like, you ask him about that moment means nothing to him. It's great mechanics. It's something that's incredibly, like, to the moment, unless you are able to get your dash at that perfect time. You don't find that stun. And for him, it's just, oh yeah, another play that comes down. And that's kind of what we were talking about. A lot of the early game, last game, we were talking about what we expected out of Belt Slap, how great they are as players and things like that. And it just didn't really live up to, I think, the hype we built up for them, which maybe was even more impressive from Smileyface to find that win. But now they're playing much more like themselves. We haven't seen any crazy mistake, although last game it was the same vein. It wasn't until Trickstank made that one misstep that things really started to spiral out of control. But where do you see it maybe going wrong for Belt Slap? Where do Smileyface have to start putting that pressure in order to find themselves in the same lead they did last game?
If I'm Smileyface, I'm immediately looking to leverage this Kuzumbo, his displacement in the early game survivability, the ultimate that he has, the CC immunity, all of that is going to be so hard for Belt Slap to deal with. Kuzumbo is a fantastic pick into Bakasura in general. He's just going to be able to use his ultimate to disrupt a ton of Johnny's damage. So I'm looking to maybe target out the jungler. Let's see if we can slow down this Bakasura's farm. He's already now 2 levels up. He's got to be the problem child that Smileyface has to address.
And you had already talked about in last game how Azalea didn't want to fight until level 6 anyway, now probably doesn't want to fight at all, is kind of PvEing and playing passively. It's Johnny instead who's getting aggressive, forces the ult from Silence. Woo! It's not going to matter. The damage from Zeros is going to be enough to lock him down. A little bit of the Dharmic Pillars just to make sure you have the assistance coming out from Trickstank. They use a lot to lock that down, though. 3 ults, and now it looks like Smileyface want to get aggressive. The leap from Johnny and the portal from Zeros are going to be able to get them into that tier 1 tower, and they maybe bait out a little bit from Smileyface there, knowing that their disengage was going to keep them safe.
Zeros is already looking so much better on the Xehanous than he was on the Chronos. His damage output is much more consistent. He's been able to survive all sorts of ganks. I like this playstyle way more. Belt Slap also playing a lot less aggressive than we saw. Sure, they're getting early fights, early kills,
and maybe a little bit too much for them this time around. They've been solid so far, but a lot of return damage. Brat's going to get taken down by Julio with a good rotation. It's going to be the lockdown now from the Nox. Unfortunately not connecting, so Julio's going to be able to walk away. Well, damage-free for the most part. Johnny, Zero, stay alive. You lose Trickstank, you trade out the mid laner on the other side. Even if you maybe calculate that one as Trickstank getting too aggressive, they're fine with it.
I mean, that's worth... My support can die for nothing and I'm happy. I don't care. But if we trade it out for a mid laner, that's huge value. Now, I really expect Johnny to keep pushing this pressure onto Lamogao. Right now, this Nox has been left largely uncontested. He's already falling slightly behind in farm. Totemaku's starting to favor out Belt Slap just ever so slightly. But the blue buff invade that Lamogao got away with now twice, that can't be allowed to happen anymore. He's very susceptible to Bakasura's ganks. Sure, he's level 11, but he has 0 defense online, instead electing to get that Chronos Pendant.
And there we got to see exactly what that silence can bring. Now Xaylia is in the area, not fast enough to be able to take that blue buff for themselves, so they do lose that one overall. Nobody picks it up, and now Mogao maybe getting too aggressive. They still want to fight. Johnny's still in the area, but much like the aggression in mid lane, it seems like it's just going to dissipate. No one's going to be able to act on it just yet. The aggression, the positioning screams fight, but nobody in the actual play wants to push forward.
Dude, Oracle just putting the bully on. It seems like Belt Slap are just looking to put pressure everywhere on the map because they know that Xaylia is at such a large deficit that his focus on this Nemesis is, I have to farm up the jungle. I have to catch up to Johnny. I have to make sure that I stay relevant. And that's creating so much space for the rest of Belt Slap to say, okay, well, we're on the side lanes. Let's put out as much pressure as we want to. We see the Julio. He's been sitting on that tier 1 tower, as has Arkle. And I don't imagine that stops at any point because the threat of this level 11 Bakasura is so high when compared to this level 9 Nemesis. And even then, I would say that Bakasura is scaling into the late game with relative value to each team comp might outvalue this Nemesis.
Especially in comparison. Uller has a lot of self-peel, but I feel like Arkle just being able to jump on the horse and literally just run away from Xaylia might also help him get aggressive. And a lot of that matchup last game, I mean, they had a lot of even wave trades. You know, we talked about it a few times, so they just kind of farmed up, sat in lane, hey, you get your wave, cool, now I'll get my wave. Maybe occasionally throwing some arrows at each other, but they didn't really box it out in terms of trying to find a true solo kill. This time, Echrome has been taking a lot of hits. Every time Arkle gets aggressive, part of it is onto his opponent here. That's maybe making a huge difference for him in terms of control of the lane as a whole. Made it a lot more different and difficult for Smileyface. You're not going to have this huge powerhouse ROM rotate over. Yeah, still staying on par in terms of level, I think, with Arkle, but maybe not the same difference it would have made last game when he made that big rotation.
And the difference between the Hunter's builds right now, Arkle looking to move into that Rage very early on, whereas Rom likely going to be going into the Executioner. Smileyface has a slight edge when it comes to objective shred, just because they have this Merlin. They're going to have that sustained damage from the Rom with Exe. But once the team fight starts up, once Arkle gets that Rage finished, I imagine Belt Slap's immediately going to move towards the Gold Fury. They're not necessarily looking for the objective itself, but any sort of fight, get those Rage stacks online, make that lane even easier for Arkle. That's really where my eyes are going towards, so the second that item's done, I imagine we see a Gold Fury fight.
Well, Xeros forced to portal away there and gets a nice long one under the tier 1 tower to keep himself safe. And that's kind of the downside. Xaylia can slow you to death to the point where anybody will be able to chase you down. But if you can walk through walls and, well, your opposing jungler doesn't have a leap, it's pretty easy to get away here. So Xeros maybe having the perfect counter pick here to this Nemesis. And now it is that Gold Fury started up. You just highlighted Xaylia in the area. Trickstank uses the Dharmic Pillars. There's going to be a blink forward from the jungler. They're going to be trying to lock him down here. Xaylia is not going to be able to find a lot. And in fact, it's turned around. Xeros gets the kill onto Silence. Xaylia forced to run away. Julio using the portal to reposition. It feels like Belt Slap kind of want to get aggressive, kind of want to fall back. They ditch the Gold Fury as a whole, they take the kill, and they leave it as is.
I like that play. If you don't back up to Gold Fury, which was already a risky play considering how low health Trickstank was, had they actually gotten gold, that means that Smileyface would have no reason to step up again. Oh, but Johnny, looking for an early engagement. Echrome nearly decides, yeah, I'll just take the farm. With Gold Fury still being up, it means that Belt Slap can back up, finish that Rage, regroup, and force another fight on it, and Smileyface won't be willing to let it go for free.
This is going to be a difficult fight. Xaylia maybe wants to take the 1v1. The shield helps out a little bit, but now it's on cooldown. Johnny feels very confident getting aggressive here. Nice slow from Xeros to make it even easier for him, although he might not need it since he has that hastened katana. They're just going to be able to lock down that kill, and now the Gold Fury started up one more time. They've got 4 people over here. I think Smileyface, even if they know this is going on, aren't going to get aggressive here. Belt Slap are in control.
I'm surprised to see Echrome not even try and use his ultimate to steal it away. Oh, it's because it's on cooldown. Woe is him. Instead, now, Gold Fury taken away from Belt Slap for free. 3,000 gold in the lead. Pyromancer is the only objective available. Smileyface doesn't really look like they're willing to move into it. And now we're starting to see Johnny getting into that signature start. He's got the Hastened online. He's got the Golden Blade ready. His damage output is huge. And now he's looking at 3 levels up over Xaylia. Anywhere that Belt Slap decide to fight, if Johnny's there, they're going to be favored.
Yeah, you give him the items that Bakasura needs to really start shining. Oh, 2 kills, 3 assists. He's been a part of every single kill that his team has had. 4 levels also is going to help immensely in the jungle there. I mean, we were talking all game last time about how Xaylia should feel like he was fighting from behind, but it never truly got to happen because of some early kills that, well, Johnny wasn't able to get and that Xaylia was. Now, I think we're seeing the full effect of kind of the two, dichotomy of Nemesis. In the limelight, when she does well, you get last game. Every other time that you don't get that start, you're probably going to end up in this game, where right now, there's not been a lot of noise from the jungler on Smileyface.
Nemesis fit the last comp a lot better as well. Even had she not gotten the start, that was the strategy was, okay, we'll wait for them to come to us. We get the huge amount of CC, set up our damage, I'll shred defense. We get at least one target very easily. But looking at the comp now, they're looking at a much more aggressive playstyle. Lomogao, to get his CC, is going to have to move up, look to try and find his pressure. Silence is going to be dashing in face first. E-Chrome not nearly as ranged as he was with that safety, so he's got to play a little bit more safely himself, which means that Xaylia is going to be more of a solo agent once these team fights start up. He's going to have to play around the side of the fight, maybe look for a split push, then move in behind the enemy team, and that's not Nemesis' strong suit. She needs to be grouped up with her team. She doesn't play like a standard assassin who's willing to come in on his own, a la Bakasura, Hunbots, anything like that. She has to have the backing of her squad, and right now, this draft doesn't fit her nearly as well.
And that's something that I feel is usually easy to overlook. There's a lot of top picks that you can just kind of be plug and play. They will fit in most drafts and play well together. But, you know, it is a puzzle that you still have to put together, and unfortunately it seems like Smileyface have like 3 different pieces from 3 different puzzles that kind of have the same edges, but unfortunately it just aren't interlocking the way you need them to. And as of right now, that's given Belt Slap a massive advantage. Granted, a majority of it is only in that jungle, so it is that 3-level lead Johnny has. If you're able to play it out the long con, you hit level 20 if you're Xaylia, then eventually you might be able to equal the playing field there, because everybody else, 16-16 there in the solo lane, 16-16 as well as in mid and in the long lane, so everything's going really well. But that's where the conversation kind of shifts. You look at Smileyface's, dynamic, their composition. You mentioned that it just doesn't feel like it fits together well. How do you feel about what Belt Slap are bringing? How well do those picks kind of interlock with each other?
Every single piece of Belt Slap says, I'm looking to hold down W and I want to fight. We got Bakasura running it down, Tyr running it down. You've got everything that you need. Yanis is going to be playing that solo agent. He's one of the best dive mid laners that you can have. Portal into the back line, look for unstable vortex, portal out, do it again, rinse, repeat. It's that constant guerrilla warfare tactics, and I think that entirely is what encapsulates Belt Slap's identity in this match. We saw there that Johnny being level 16, DCing into a wall, walking into the enemy jungle, was so scary that Xaylia double dashed away. I mean, the pressure that Belt Slap has right now is immense, despite only being about 2,500 gold up. There are plenty of objectives left on the map. Pyromancer is still available that Belt Slap could group up on, and I'm not sure that Smileyface even has the wherewithal or the damage to fight into it.
And now it's going to be Pyromancer started up by Belt Slap, and Brox is in the area. The rest of the team for Smileyface are keeping their eyes on the situation, but it very much is a watch right now. They're trying to figure out what they want to do to get aggressive. Johnny, if he starts these fights at half health, maybe gives more of an opportunity to Smileyface to capitalize on him, but he's able to heal up from these jungle buffs, and it just makes it so much more difficult, I think, to keep up with him already, but now locking him down has proven impossible. He's got the Executioner, and he's looking for blood. This is Johnny looking for kills, and unfortunately, anybody on Smileyface is the target.
Johnny is also the fastest man on the map. He doesn't even need his passive to maintain his speed. With the double katana, with the boots, he can't really be caught up with. If Nemesis drops the ultimate, that might be one way to lock him down, but dedicating your ultimate to a squishy target's not always the best option.
Well, Belt Slap are going to be able to take that Pyromancer, no problem the second time. A little bit of zoning maybe causes some slight stress, I think is the only way I can term it. Again, they never felt truly worried. They didn't drop the objective, so they're going to take that. And with 30 seconds until an Oni Fury is going to be spawning over here on the left-hand side of the map, I think they warrant their attention towards their jungle and that positioning, that vision you need in order to fight that kind of fight. And again, they've only dropped one death, and that is on Trixtank, so of all people that have died, it's absolutely acceptable for you. And unfortunately for people like E-Chrome, he's kind of on the chopping block in the event he gets spotted out.
If I'm Smileyface right now, my whole prerogative is, okay, we need to somehow get Lamogao over here to this Oni Fury to be ready for this fight. It's the only way we're going to be able to win it. We need to find that silence root combo, blow up the first target, and then we can look for a further engagement. Outside of that, if Silence dashes in, tries to pull someone out of position, Belt Slap has so many tools to deal with it. Johnny could drop his ultimate to cripple it out. Trixtank could use his silence. Tyr actually wins that trade with Fearless. There's so many ways that E-Chrome, or Silence rather, just can get forced out of an engagement that they need that secondary engagement factor out of this Nox.
Once again, the vision from Smileyface is just perfect, and at least in terms of covering pretty much every avenue they need to. Trixtank being able to stand in a ward, whether he takes a step forward or a step to the side, and that's something that they've had. Maybe not the same coverage that they had around that Fire Giant last game, but just showcasing again how much they value warding and that vision for Smileyface in these fights, because it maybe opens up opportunities like this. You see people back off, you start at the Gold Fury and the Oni Fury here. At half health, they're going to be able to try and burst it down. They're going to confirm that one, even though the damage from Belt Slap comes through. Snipe just a little bit too early there from Zeros. Even though they're going to be able to use it to reposition, they aren't able to take that one, and so much needed pressure here now in favor of Smileyface.
It looked to me like Smileyface actually tried to disengage on that Gold Fury and completely reset it, but when Julio dashed in, it pulled the aggro and some just latent damage laying around. Maybe the Nox Silence explodes and confirms the objective in favor of Smileyface. Slight misplay from Belt Slap. They can't be too concerned about it, though. They're still maintaining that 2,000 gold lead. The Oni minion waves really can't be used well by Smileyface at this point because they don't have any way to push along with them. So that's just going to be dealt with immediately. The only thing that really goes their way is a little bit of XP and gold. Going forward, Belt Slap now has free reign of the map. They still have the lead, they still have the fight advantage, and now that there's no objectives available, it means that they don't have to worry about any sort of trade. If Johnny wants to go over to the Soul Lane, he absolutely can without having to worry about Gold Fury.
Now that Oni Fury really did just kind of stalemate the lanes for slightly longer than anything that it had done previously. And it kind of brought my attention. I didn't even realize it. Not a single tower has been taken. Mogal is close to losing his, but that's the only one realistically that is in threat right now until a team fight happens. So this Fire Giant going to be very worthwhile because of how lucrative all of the gold that's still on the map is. I mean, you've already got a, 2,000, almost 3,000 gold lead here if you're Belt Slap. And being able to pick up those objectives would be huge. You had already mentioned the fact that they can just kind of walk wherever they want to. They have control. It is just going to be around these big team fights that's going to make the big difference. How do you feel, Smileyface, you're bringing in a Nox, a nice massive silence. You've got big damage that comes out of Brats there on the Merlin. A fight in the Fire Giant pit. How well can it fare for them?
It's all execution based. If Lamogao can find the combo onto somebody and Smileyface don't immediately kill that one target off the initial silence, I think that the fight's going to immediately go in Belt Slap's favor. But if Smileyface is able to execute their strategy properly, find that early pick off of that huge engagement, that's when we're going to start to see them be able to surge forward, look for more. But Julio doing a fantastic job of just making sure the backline is uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't think Julio got any memo that he's not supposed to be in that part of the jungle. He decides anyone that he can pick up is going to be worthwhile, forces a lot of little disengage or movement from Smileyface to fall back. And then you get a clean kill on Silence. That's 30 seconds of a 4v5 here, and you can see they want to use that pressure wherever they can. Ward vision still there for Smileyface, but maybe nowhere near the amount they're used to. They're trying to figure out how they want to aggress into this. Johnny does not want to slow down and is going to go ahead and jump on forward. Takes the ult from Nemesis, taking a lot of damage in return. It's going to force to fall back. Good portal from Zeros keeps him alive, but the snipe from E-Chrome going to be able to lock him down. Brat still takes too much, though. Arkle going to get credit for that kill, and they're going to trade that one for one. Still losing Johnny's a huge deal right now for Belt Slap.
But they were able to take away E-Chrome's ultimate and beads there. So the second Julio finds another Fearless, well, E-Chrome's likely going to go the same way that we saw Silence go, which is immediately to all the damage before he was even allowed to touch the ground. Right now, Smileyface has done a good job of just mitigating loss. Immediately we saw that, yes, Silence does fall out there, but Belt Slap really doesn't get much off of it. Johnny trades out his life for another. Pyromancer goes their way. But still, at this point, Pyromancer's not enough of a gold or XP swing for it to really matter. We're waiting for the first real fight to swing either way, get that Fire Giant rolling. Then there's so much passive gold available on the map, as you pointed out. Still, there's 12 objectives available, every single tower and Phoenix. It doesn't really matter who gets the Fire Giant. No matter who does, is going to immediately blow this game open.
Well, finally, one of them is going to fall down, a tower, that is, and it's going to be Echrome who takes that one. And maybe it's just a small dip into the coffers, but it's going to give you at least some gold here. That can maybe afford all those wards. 5 sentries, it looks like 4 regular wards there in pocket for Belt Slap. The only reason they don't have 5 is just because of that health pot that is taken up at the spot there for Julio. So unfortunately for them, maybe lacking 1 ward division, but I expect a lot of coverage over here, whether it be around the Primal Fury or this Fire Giant pit. It seems like the control has not left Belt Slap's favor. Now they're finally going to answer back that tower, much like they would have liked to. No, not even going to be able to get that. Mogao's done anything and everything to stop that tower from falling. And hey man, if it works, it works.
It's not even a big deal. The Soul Lane Tower here isn't really an escape path for either team. It's just a little bit of global gold. I think they're really looking to just force them out of position and make Smileyface retaliate.
All right, now they're trying to force them to be at least a little bit uncomfortable. And that's Smileyface forcing Belt Slap to feel uncomfortable. One of the first times we've gotten to say that this game. Arkle about half health. Shouldn't have any issues really stacking up those health bars once again with the full Devo's Gauntlet. He's going to be just fine, but showcases that the pressure still exists for Smileyface and where they want to apply it. Primal Fury is respawned, and I guess this is a good question for you. With Primal Fury there, is it worth trying to go over maybe sending someone like Arkle to try and sneak that away, or do you want to go for the fight and the objectives? And it seems like they answer the question for you. It's Belt Slap getting aggressive here. Mogao forced to dash away. Echrome's up in the sky, but Beads, Aegis only going to be able to do so much here. He's locked down between 3. Maybe make that 4. It's going to be a clean kill. Get in, get out for Belt Slap. And even get more aggressive if they want to. Julio looking for a repositioning. They're just going to aggress into the jungle. They get the Hunter, they get out.
Yeah, that kill on Echrome, that's devastating. That would have been an option more so for Smileyface to go over towards that Gold Fury Sendra ADC, because you know you're already not favored in the engagement. You might as well try and force out something and maybe buy some time by forcing Belt Slap to rotate themselves over. But now that he's dead, Belt Slap can go just about wherever they want. I'm surprised to see them not try and force a fight on the Fire Giant and instead rotate through the jungle. Sure, you can strip away red, you can strip away purple. We might even see him take the Primal Fury. But that's such a huge opportunity lost. I would really love to see them just continue their onslaught. Johnny had ultimate available. If anyone from Smileyface stepped up a little bit too far when they try to defend the Fire Giant, I would still favor Belt Slap in the engagement.
Well, even more so now that they've got that Primal Fury picked up for them. And they did finally get that Tier 1 tower, Mifflin. It's been the one thing I think that they've fully committed to this game over there in right lane. Ultimately, though, it's so bizarre to see, you know, we're 27 minutes in, 27 and a half, and the fact that there's still this many objectives in play is not something that you typically see at this point in the game. And the only reason it's big is as we get to, you know, full builds, you got Obsidian Shards coming online, Chin Size there for Johnny, etc., etc. That means that's gold that can go towards power potions, towards ward coverage. Already, Belt Slap have been spending a lot in terms of vision. So that's going to make it a lot easier for them. How does the next fight engage start? Like, where if I'm Belt Slap, you're already in control. Do you just hold W at him and hope for the best, or do you wait for, you know, someone like Silence to make a misstep?
Every single engagement that's gone in favor of Belt Slap has gone exactly like this. Julio walks in, just doesn't care, blatant disrespect, finds a Fearless, sets up a kill. Then we see Xaylia try and ult maybe Heroes, and then Heroes disengages.
Well, hey, it seems like almost every single one of those things you said just happened in about 3 seconds. Julio walks in, does everything. Zeros is able to help lock him down with the burst. Arkle, of course, there with the crit. The Deathbringer now online for him means he's hitting even harder. And it might just be 1 kill, maybe turning into more if Arkle can hit more crits like that on the Mogao. And that's all they need. It's 9-2, 2-0-4 is the Hunter, 4-0-3 there for Zeros. A much better game here than he had on the Chronos. Still no Fire Giant. Pyromancer's going to respawn right here, so that it's at least an objective that Belt Slap are going to be able to take, but they really are just picking up any and every kill they can find at this half of the jungle.
At this point, I'm willing to call it hesitance. It seems like every time Belt Slap just gets a small opportunity, they're not willing to take it.
Johnny, trying to force some of those opportunities, looks to heal up in the jungle, is going to get a massive heal off of that, but Bratz has vision on him, and the team has actually backed from Smileyface. It opens up the Fire Giant. They might be able to find a kill finally in response. Johnny goes down, but you give everyone else the Fire Giant buff, and again, with all the objectives on the map, I expect to see some towers start to fall, especially with Arkle in the neighborhood. They're forced to fall back. Silence is going to get aggressive, goes for the slow, tries to find the push. The crits are going to ring true here, but Silence just shrugs them off. Now Julio, the one in the backline. Dharmic Pillar is going to be able to get a little bit of damage onto Mogao, but it's the spread that's making the big difference. Zalia takes a little bit more than he can chew, and now the damage is flying true here. And it's going to be Zeros that goes down. Arkle that goes down. Johnny's still sitting in the penalty box for that one. That's going to be a clean couple of kills for Smileyface. They lose the Fire Giant, but they win the fight.
Belt Slap just overstayed a little bit too long. Now Julio being chased out by 3. He should be able to make it out, but Fearless gets caught. Could cost him his life.
Has to ult just to get that CC immunity and try and run away. Trickstank is going to have a little bit of heal. And pretty much the opposite of everything I thought was going to happen after that Fire Giant fell has started. The fight goes the way of Smileyface. The towers are going the way of Smileyface. They're going to be able to finish up and catch up, maybe even pass a little bit with that tier 2 there. Everything that Belt Slap has accrued in terms of a gold lead. They steal some buffs away from the jungle, and it is a solid start. Onifuri's the next big objective that's going to be spawning up, and, well, with the Fire Giant burned off most members of Belt Slap, it feels more like an even fight than really favoring either side. Maybe still favoring Belt Slap since the way the rest of this game has gone, but Smileyface, in one fell swoop, showcase they're still in it.
Look, Julio has Fire Giant, and Julio's been an absolute menace without it. I imagine it's going to be looking a lot better now, and still, having Fire Giant on only 2 members, not the best case scenario, but having it on your tanks means that they can very easily move into these towers, tank it up, not have to worry about it, leverage that sustain the Fire Giant gives you, and just keep moving through these objectives. As long as Belt Slap stay grouped up as 5, these fights should still slightly favor them.
And unfortunately, Mogao's missed the lockdown onto Julio a few times. Now Julio's going to be the one getting aggressive, forces the CC immunity. The Magi's cloak there from Mogao is going to get procced, and he's not going to be able to stay as aggressive as he wants, showcasing what Julio can do. Whether or not he's going to get the pluck or not, he's still going to find something beneficial for his team. Now the question is whether or not he can do it again. He's in the position to, and he's already going to be walking up behind them. He's going to blink forward. That's going to be Zalia. That's clapped out. The shield's going to be able to keep him alive. The snipes ring true for E-Chrome, but again, not going to find much in terms of kill. Trickstank is low. He's really the only one right now. It seems like Belt Slap are content to let this one kind of slide as is, heal up, fall back, and just call it that.
Right now, Smileyface, they just showed me, okay, well, with Belt Slap got a lot of really good engagement there. Trickstank targets out 3 people with his ultimate, finds 3 ticks onto 2, and it still wasn't enough. Zeros drops about 3 people to about 50%, wasn't enough. Smileyface can keep taking these engagements and look to fight it out. If Lamogao finds a silence, gets followed up by Zalia's ultimate, that should be anyone's life, especially considering the crit build that E-Chrome has.
Well, silence is low. Julio's on the side, which is pretty much the standard split I've come to expect from Belt Slap. And now, the Oni Fury started up by Arkle, of all people. The crits are ringing true. There's going to be the Dharmic Pillars for the zone, and it's Silence that goes in. He's taking a lot of damage in the process, though. A snipe from Zeros, not going to connect onto anybody, but E-Chrome's still a little damaged in the backline. Everyone on Smileyface forced to fall back and run away. Bratz even brought back into the mid lane here by Julio, but it's going to be Johnny that goes down on the side fight. E-Chrome looking to get aggressive now. Zeros is low, and it would be his second death of the game if Silence can chase him down. It's hard to keep up with Yanis, though, and he's going to end up forced to run away here as Arkle uses his ult to try and close the gap. Bratz is still around. The damage is good. Julio in a bad spot ends up taking too much, and now 60 seconds is out of the game. Smileyface take 2 kills. They can either turn their eyes to the Oni Fury like they are, maybe get aggressive here. Zeros can't really come back in. Trickstank can try, but unfortunately it's not going too well for him. A lot of damage in retaliation. The Nox ult comes through, but it doesn't hit. They're going to get that Oni Fury. Bratz is low, and Zeros is going to get credit for the kill. Trickstank, the one who truly got that one. The Dharmic Pillars well placed. So he's going to be able to credit that one over to his mid laner. At least they get something out of the end of that.
That was just a sloppy engagement from Belt Slap. Johnny decides to take a 1v1 against Xaylia, an engagement where he's really not favored. Since Johnny doesn't have any form of hard CC, Xaylia can just use that shield to tank up all of the auto attacks that he wants, get some additional healing from it as well, and keep trading it out. Nothing goes their way. The engagement from Belt Slap starts off initially through the Dharmic Pillars, but no one follows up on that. Arkil doesn't hold on to his ultimate long enough to chase out Eye Silenced, so he gets out for free as well, whereas Smileyface just wins small skirmishes across the map. First starting off with that Xaylia solo kill, then chasing out Johnny being a little bit too deep now that his boy was dead. No one was around. Zero's got forced out from his health bar being way too low and has to just completely disengage, meaning that they're lacking a ton of magical damage as well. Smileyface are artificially manufacturing all sorts of separate engagements, and it's starting to swing the game in their favor.
I mean, the open circuit team is usually not favored when going up against the undefeated #1 seed from Europe in Phase 2, also the undefeated in Phase 1. Belt Slap haven't dropped a lot of games this year, period. So it is something that is a lot of pressure mounting for them. Smileyface, I think it's a huge credit to be able to take just one game off of them, but in this kind of position, I mean, the lead is negligible at this point. With 35 minutes in, 200 gold means nothing. Maybe a couple of wards. That vision has been impactful, but I mean, itemization, team fight-wise, a lot of this is coming down to positioning and decision-making. And so far, Belt Slap have run the same play out of their playbook, which is, hey, Julio, can you get someone? If yes, we kill. If no, uh-oh. And we have to run away, and the Fire Giant is going to be started up here by Smileyface. So they just look to zone.
Right now, this might be the best fight that Belt Slap has because Johnny just sold his boots, got the Elixir of Speed, and a Robe of Discord, or Mantle of Discord, rather.
Well, unfortunately, Trickstank is the one that gets caught out this time around. The Dharmic Pillars are doing some work, though, for the team. Nox being able to throw her ultimate right down as well. The splash damage looks good. Johnny goes into the backline. So many people are low, but Johnny himself has to disengage just to stay alive. Bratz taken down. Smileyface lose their mid laner and a huge portion of their damage. There's the rest of it with E-Chrome going down as well. Xaylia, that shield does work. He gets Arkle, but unfortunately it's not enough to keep him alive and find anything more. So far, 3 for 1. Mogal is just a snip away from making it 4 for 1, trying to do his best to stay alive. But that's going to be the lockdown from Julio. The only person who stays alive in all that is Silence. That puts Belt Slap right back in the driver's seat.
Yeah, I think that should be game. We're looking at 40 seconds on a respawn, and the wave is already pushed up in mid. And we're not going to sleep on Julio for a second. Don't think for a second we missed that 3-man Fearless into a wall to perfectly set up his squad to win that engagement. You are absolutely right going into that fight. Julio, if you get a Fearless, do we get a kill? If yes, awesome. If no, we cry. Yeah, he just took 3 instead and got 3 kills.
Oh, hey, they're making it work for them. The Phoenix goes down, the Titan under pressure. Silence doing everything in his power, but he's just a lonely Kuzenbo. The Titan goes down, and Belt Slap tie this one up.
It wasn't pretty, though, was it? It was a lot closer than we thought, especially considering the start we saw that they got. Belt Slap were looking like they might be able to just run away with that game, but instead, Smileyface was able to just keep them locked down, make sure to drag that game out. And truthfully, had Smileyface won that engagement, they would have won the game as well. That was all brought down to the exactly last second, the exact last fight of the game to figure out who was going to win that match.
I mean, we hit, 27 minutes and all of the towers are still up, and it just feels like, man, anybody could win it, but Belt Slap have a massive amount of control. And then we end up at 35 minutes where anyone can win it. It all just is dependent on that last team fight. I think well played from Belt Slap at the end there to make sure things lock down. But again, a little fishy, as you had mentioned. So let's jump back to the desk, see if they can dissect what was fishy about it, what they need to change going into game number 3.
Thanks, Goran Myth. This has been a surprisingly competitive set, I would say, as Smileyface have looked great so far. But another thing that's looking great is all of those great fan-forward submissions that we have that are now available for you all to pick up. It's merchandise fit for the gods that you can go pick up right now. These are fan-submitted designs that we're talking about here, and that includes things like t-shirts, hoodies, mouse pads, pillows, all that cool stuff that you need to make your gamer life work. It's other designs submitted by fans like you that have made it all the way through and now are available for you all to go grab at forfans.byfans.com. Pretty good name for it. That's exactly what it is. /fandom/smite. Make sure you go check that out, you all, and go enjoy those fan designs and all that cool stuff. Lerman, we could talk a little bit more, though, about what happened there in game number 2, because this was looking all belt slap, I would say, for the vast majority of this game. Things got a little bit scary after they got the fire drive. It's not normally how things go. It's a fight actually won by Smileyface. They got right back into it, but then Julio makes the god play, turns this thing around. So what was the big difference for you between games number 2 and game number 1?
I think the biggest issue really was the fact that Xaylia just didn't get ahead on this Nemesis. It really seemed like Johnny was in the control of the game, especially because his Bakasura was, what, like 3 levels up over top of the Nemesis? And honestly, I don't know if that's necessarily the character's problem, but it certainly could be a reason why. You can just check out here. I mean, just check out the difference in the impact. 6 total kill participation for Xaylia. Meanwhile, 12 over there for Johnny. He was the one really running the show, but when it comes down to the damage, honestly, it was basically Zeros who was bringing it out there. I mean, I couldn't even count the number of times that I was so surprised by someone getting bursted down by an unstable vortex or through space and time. The man was on point.
Yeah, Zero's putting out good damage. I mean, he was providing some utility as well, right? Good slows, good portals, all that stuff that you need from your Giannis. But I really feel like this time the big difference makers had to be the Bakasura, as you mentioned, but also Julio, a great game that he had as well on this tier. I mean, obviously the game-stealing play, but he had to deal with that ridiculous Nox solo build / gameplay all game and still managed to have an excellent performance as well. So I really do think it came down to those two guys.
For sure. I think Julio had an outstanding performance, and this is why you take away his tier. He certainly is the man to set it up, and as the casters were saying, if he gets the Fearless, then that really is it, and clearly that is exactly what happened. So in game number 3, I'm really hoping that they find a way to deal with this tier, or they just ban it out.
They're going to need to find something, right? Because obviously Julio is too comfortable on it. And I think that that is kind of the story of game number 2 for me, Lermy, right? Is that this was belt set going back to comfort picks. It was Johnny getting back onto the Bakasura. It was Zeros getting back on the Giannis. I mean, it was Julio getting back on the tier. It was too many of these picks that we know they could play at a high level. Plus, I do think that we saw Smileyface outthink themselves a little bit, right? I don't know if they really got as much value as they would have liked to from the Kuzenbo. The Nox, at the end, that was its only death all game, but I don't know if it was providing enough value either. It really felt like, essentially, it was just Echrome trying to keep them in this game, with a little bit of help from Bratz as well. Maybe flip those two, mostly Bratz, a little bit of help from Echrome, but they didn't have enough to find the win.
Yeah, so in game number 3, I'm just hoping that they kind of go back to the drawing board on this Nox, and maybe even the Kuzenbo. I think, honestly, there are a lot of really good choices out there, but going back to maybe a defensive support for Silence could work out. We saw how dangerous it was when Mogat was on the offensive and Silence was on the defensive, so I think that strategy could honestly prove wonders for them, especially because it felt like on the backhand side, Bratz is getting picked off a lot, and Echrome wasn't able to do really all that he wanted to because he was just dying all the time to the Bakasura getting back there.
We weren't. We've seen it from Echrome. He can hit those snipes if you give him some room. Even without the setup, he had some great ones onto Johnny in game 1 and in game number 2. And then obviously Bratz with that 40K performance in game 1 and a little bit closer, I think, with somewhere around that 30K mark here in game number 2. So I think clearly you're getting value out of your backliners. They just had to make sure they're doing enough to keep them alive, and I just don't think they were getting it. And I also think it wouldn't hurt if they had something other than Nemesis in the jungle. Even though they won game 1, it was a good slash line for the Nemesis. I don't know how much independent Nemesis value we saw as opposed to some of those other really strong jungle picks. So I think there's a lot to be considered if you're Smileyface moving into the picks and bans for game number 3.
Yeah, I think just switching it up, going for something different here. They've already seen this Nemesis twice, and of course it is kind of the surprise pick that we talked about before, where they don't really see a lot of Nemesises all the time, so bringing out something new and something different certainly works. But that typically only works the first or second time, and we saw that the second time didn't work, so it's time to go to something different. But check out these bans here, as once again Smile are going to be banning out the Sobek here instead of the Morrigan and the Persephone from earlier, so maybe a little less focus on the Zeros now that they know, okay, maybe he's not as willing to go back to those really OP busted gods, and instead is going to play kind of his own game, as we saw a Kronos and a Giannis come out.
Yeah, he's doing the opposite. It looks like he's going to the bottom of the tier list with Kronos and Giannis, right? As opposed to picking some of those great things. Back in game 1, Smileyface was like, we got to get rid of the good stuff. Zeros is definitely going to take it. Oh, maybe not, I guess. So, yeah, we'll just ban something else at this point. So we'll see. It's Beltslap themselves are the one that's choosing to ban away the Persephone up until this point. But I'm a bit surprised, Lermy, by the texture of these games overall. I felt like a lot of these picks and the builds have not been quite what I would have been expecting coming into this weekend.
Yeah, they certainly are a little different. I mean, no one could have guessed that Nox Solo would be coming out, kind of period, although maybe Milgao is kind of the only person that would do that. I mean, the builds too, there's a lot to comment on there, but it certainly is unique, and that's what we like to see. But first thing getting picked up here is the Ganesh, taking that one away from Trix Tank, so I think that's a great move. Make him do something else, put him back on the Yamoja maybe, but Fafnir, this is an interesting first pick. We do see Fafnir at least a little bit, but he's more so kind of picked up as a secondary decision, not so much the first.
Right. A lot of the times we see Fafnir picked up once you've already locked in a composition that you really need Fafnir for. The auto attack composition was something that we saw really being prioritized too. Or if you know that there aren't picks on the other side that can punish Fafnir, right? Things like the Poseidon or this big burst on that telegraph transformation can really lock Fafnir down a lot. I think those are some reasons we don't normally see him picked this high, but Beltslap are unconcerned. They're going to grab the ROM, take that away from E-Chrome, pair it with the Fafnir, and they've already got a pretty difficult to deal with dual lane secured.
Hera is going to be locked in here for Smileyface, and this is interesting because it did get banned away in the first 2 games, so this could be something special that they've got cooked up here for Beltslap and are finally choosing to prioritize it and bring it out. But honestly, I'm not mad at the Merlin. I would honestly stick with the Merlin if they keep giving it to you, because apparently they're sticking with the Nemesis, and as we just talked about, I don't know, man, I think they should have gone with something different.
Yeah, that's a great point. I don't personally know Bratz, but that's starting to seem like a failing on my part because he's been popping off here today, hasn't he? I would give him the Merlin until it stops working or something like that. One thing that I think they are seemingly convinced is going to be good, though, is this Nemesis. They grab it a third time around here, Lermy. Where are you coming down on this pick? I know you were maybe not so convinced that the problems with the Nemesis were the pick itself's fault. Do you like it here in this draft a bit better?
I honestly don't. I don't think that they have really any good way to combo off with this Nemo. Like, of course, they have the pillars coming down, and Ganesh does have some solid single-target focus, but at the same time, Hera can follow up on that, but, like, is she really going to? That's kind of like Nemesis charging forward, popping the ultimate, and then going on someone, and Hera is sending Argus off, I guess, and trying to deal with it that way, but I don't know. I think that it can work in certain situations, but this is not one where I feel like she is going to excel.
Yeah, she certainly does not leap off the page to me as a pick you have to have here, but at this point, it has become clear to me that Xaylia wants this pick, so get it for him, let him take it to the next match, and you won't hear too many complaints. The real problem, though, is how is he going to line up against this Kali? We saw what Johnny could do with the Bakasura, and Kali's that, but also has, like, a second life. You don't get to kill me sometimes because of destruction. I don't know, man. I think this might be scary for Smileyface to try and deal with.
And I'm also glad that they banned away the Kumbhakarna too, and even the Khepri, because those two characters really make it difficult for the Kali to do her thing. But with this Scylla hover, I'm liking the way this is looking. There's not necessarily a whole lot of setup for the Scylla, but even still, with the way how accurate Zeros has been, I don't think he honestly needs it. Maybe he's pulling a little bit out of the Book of Baskin and pulling the Scylla over to EU. So with this lock-in, I'm really hoping to see some sick I'm a Monsters.
Yeah, it's to the point where I'm starting to wonder if our conversation around Scylla needing setup might be overrated. I think as long as Crush and Sikkim are hitting, I could take or leave the I'm a Monsters. Crush does enough, dude. It is a lot of damage. Sikkim spreads out to multiple people as well. I just think it's gotten to the point where people are realizing that you can get consistent Scylla value, especially with her early game being more stable now in a lot of situations. I think I agree with Beltslap on this read. And now it's Smileyface's chance for a response. Give me a moment there, as they're going to take the Jormungandr and the Hou Yi in response. Jormungandr probably going solo. Hou Yi very strong right now. Is this enough to bring you over to Smileyface's camp?
I don't know, because this Guan Yu pick is pretty interesting. We've seen Julio kind of default to the tier when he's got nothing left to go, and it's still open, so that was something that I thought he was just going to go to immediately, but this Guan Yu is really interesting too, because we haven't seen him a whole lot, but I like how it works up against a Hera and a Jormungandr, being able to chase these guys down. Like, even if they try to run away, you've just got the horse to charge them down, so I think it could definitely work out, and it also has that little bit of setup that Scylla would need to be able to pop off with those nice crushes and Sikkims.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I think that this Guan Kali's dive potential is pretty scary for Smileyface and their ability to get to that backline relatively easily. Even the ROM, you can maybe even count as part of that because it can go up with that Astral Barrage and contribute. So this could be trouble for Smileyface in the backline where Hera likes to chill normally. Could potentially get blown up. But this is a decider match, Lermy. Which way are you leaning now that you got to see both of these drafts?
Honestly, I wasn't super impressed with the performance from Smileyface last game, but I think that now that they've got the Jormungandr and Ganesh on their side, they can maybe bring it back. And honestly, I just want someone to topple Belt Slap. They've been on the top for so long. Let's root for the underdogs.
That's a great point, man. Belt Slap have looked great up until this point. The entire year we're talking about, no one could seem to beat them. Could it be Smileyface, the SLC representative, that could get it done in game number 3?
Well, that's the question everyone wants answered here. Smileyface coming from the open circuit already. Looking like they're going to get aggressed on a little earlier by Belt Slap. But once again, guys, in chat, vote for who you think can win this. The last time this set, you have the chance to impact it. I'm interested to see the numbers change. Zeros now on this Scylla, Mifflin, Johnny on this Kali. Julio bringing out a Guan Yu, which is maybe throwing me a little bit for a loop. How are you feeling about this game?
Well, I was a little bit concerned, especially considering that we saw this Nemesis come through again. Sure, it worked out in the last match, but I would say that the relative value for the entirety of the game was unimpressive. The only time Xaylia stood out to me was that singular solo kill onto Johnny inside the mid lane. Now that Johnny's playing Kali, the matchup's even worse for this Nemesis. Yeah, you got a shield. All right, well, you're stunned, and now I have more power. I've also got lifesteal built into my kit. Also, I'm death immune. I think if Johnny gets off to an even remotely decent start, he's going to be absolutely devastating. If we see the same thing that happened last match, where Johnny pulled up 4 levels, that's GG right there.
Well, it's definitely going to be difficult. The jungler here for Smileyface, maybe a lot more work cut out for them. Also, notably on the order side this time around, which sometimes it makes a difference, sometimes it doesn't, and it just is going to be big for their draft phase, but very specifically, I think being able to kind of come up into the mid lane, looking for some of these ganks, trying to find a lot of these fights, now working instead of alongside a Merlin, alongside this Hera that we've seen very impactful, but realistically more around Argus than around Hera herself. Do you expect maybe a lot to come down from that mid duo?
I am really concerned about how well this Scylla's going to do. She's got a decent matchup, especially once she hits level 5. She doesn't have to worry about kill potential from Xaylia. The CC immunity and additional speed that I'm a Monster provides you is a fantastic self-peel tool. This Hera's going to have a target on her back. She's largely a mobile mage against Kali, likely also going to be the target for Kali as well. She's going to have to deal with the CC lockdown that Scylla brings, the CC lockdown that Kali has on her own. She's not going to have much peel support from the Nemesis because, well, all she has is slows. I'm worried for this Hera. I'm really concerned about how well the duo lane in general is going to work, this long lane. If we can get Trix Tank to rotate out early on and get an early lead, that's going to make it even harder for Brats to make it afloat, to stay above water.
Yeah, very difficult. Xaylia's laying in wait. We saw a level 3 gank in game 1, but it's been a while since he's really gotten that aggressive, and it seems like that's going to stay on hiatus for now. He's going to just fall back here and instead give a little bit of pressure over there, and people are voting for Smileyface this time around. Belt Slap at 31%. It's gone nothing but down, down, down as they come through. So maybe a potentially big win here for Smileyface in the books. We'll have to see. Chat can call that one right if Hindu will change the script to fit their narrative, or if he just wants to disappoint people. Well, I'll have to wait and find out. As of right now, it seems like both of these teams are content to once again kind of play the slow roll.
I mean, the vote makes sense to me. I agree that people should have a little bit more faith in Smileyface here, just because of the 2 games that we've seen so far. Belt Slap barely eke out a win, whereas Smileyface was pretty dominant in game 1. So I can see that you might be a little bit more reliant on them. But that said, Belt Slap, I would say that this comp that they have right now is the most in line with their actual playstyle. They've got Johnny playing a literal hyper carry, something that scales a lot better in the late game than Bakasura does. Zeros is going to be an absolute monster, no pun intended, on this Scylla. And Trix has this additional level of safety from Fafnir. Those misplays that we saw where he groups up on tier 2 alone is going to be a lot harder to punish. He now has a leap. He's got a secondary leap inside Dragon form. I like everything that we're seeing. Arco playing a very high tier hunter as well means that he's going to have a decent matchup into this Hu Yi insofar as he stays relatively even in XP. I think that it's really, the ball is in Smileyface's court to make sure that nothing really comes afloat for Belt Slap. They have to be worried about this Kali. They have to make sure that they can keep him down.
Yeah, late game is definitely not where you want to find yourself, although right now it's early game that they're looking for the fight. They hit level 5 first, at least for E-Chrome. Now he's going to be jumping in, trying to get some damage down. It's good so far, but he doesn't have the health bar to chase him down. The minions are around, and Silence is going to just force everyone on Belt Slap, the duo lane, to go under their tier 1 tower. Not able to find their first blood, which I'm sure those suns were dropped with the hopes of, and now all it takes is for Arkle to hit that level 5 portion. Once he gets those snipes online, it becomes a different game and a different fight.
It certainly does. And now E-Chrome, being relatively no longer has his ultimate available, means that Trixtank can immediately look to find that engagement. This is a very tumultuous time in the duo lane. I'm imagining that E-Chrome's main prerogative right now is, all right, I want to be able to finish whatever item I'm finishing first, and I want to get back to base. I don't want to be here while my ultimate's down, and that makes perfect sense to me. Brot's being allowed to clear out those oracles on his own is interesting. He's not splitting the farm with anyone. No one really contested him, whereas Zeros was just kind of clearing out his own jungle. I don't think we're going to see too much pressure in the mid lane from either jungler. It seems like both have been putting a large focus on the long lane and the short lane.
I mean, just trying to find any pressure they can. For Julio, maybe you kind of need some assistance. I mean, Jormungandr is pretty much known for just not losing lane. I'm kind of surprised to see, you had mentioned how easily it would be to potentially capitalize on this Hera, that there's not been a lot of pressure overall in mid lane, and that you're maybe dodging bullets if you're Brotst, maybe also dodging bullets if you're Zeros. Both of them have been impactful late game, but maybe don't have the cleanest early game of all. With the Kali, with the Scylla, where's the timer on this match? Are Smileyface working against like the late game fights, or do they have something that can keep up with it?
I think that Smileyface has tools to deal with this Kali. They have to burn through her beads first, but Brotst on this Hera actually has decent self-peel with the Poly. But duo lane, seeing some aggression, E-Chrome too far up.
Yeah, taking a lot of shots here. The dragon damage is going to ring true as well. Arkle is going to get himself a kill. No issues seen there. Not even able to use her. I had already used the beads there, so not able to have them as E-Chrome. So he's just locked down through and through. And that first blood might start a little bit of a snowball. No purple buff to be found, but Silence maybe too aggressive here in terms of his positioning. Takes too many steps forward. A nice hammer would have been thrown his way. It could have been picked up. And now's where that pressure can start picking up. Now that you've got that first blood, you can start looking for those kills. You can feel more comfortable in your matchup. Whether you're Arkle, whether you're Johnny, that just means you can start putting some pressure out on the map.
And Johnny's already established about a half-level lead from just playing the map, which is completely along the lines of what he's looking to do. This Kali doesn't have to get involved in the early game, and he's got no pressure to do it either because Smileyface drafted a similarly low-pressure jungler in the early game, which means whichever one scales better into the late is going to be better for their team. I'm going to put my money on the Kali every step of the way. This Nemesis hasn't really looked for any ganks. Neither has this Kali, but who's farming faster? It's Johnny right now. I'm completely in the camp of Belt Slap. They're looking at a nearly 200 gold lead. Doesn't matter at all. The XP is what we're really keeping our eyes on. And right now, we're looking at a head hunter. We're looking at a head jungler. The second that Arkle maybe looks for some more pressure on the E-Chrome, maybe we get a gank over there, we could be seeing a very early gold fury in favor of Belt Slap.
It's the question of when the pressure is going to come out, not necessarily where, right? It's a pretty, well, I would even argue telegraphed where Belt Slap want to fight. Right now, it seems the duo lane is just battleground #1 for them. Constantly trying to shut down E-Chrome, rotating over. Whether they get his beads or his ult, they're going to be able to walk away happy with it. And now they're forcing, I think, the rest of the team to maybe play around that aggression. Smileyface more or less having to deal with it. Brotz hasn't necessarily had a huge impact yet, but that Argus being available, I expect to see that start to come into the play more or less around the first big team fight, whether it's the Gold Fury or it's just from Belt Slap deciding, you know what, here's where it's going to happen, and they decide to just push into Smileyface.
I think Brotz is going to be trying to hold on to that Argus cooldown as long as he can because it's the main thing that's going to keep him alive. The second that Johnny decides to engage onto this Hera, if that Argus isn't available, that's a dead Hera. And Smileyface has been using largely counter-engaged comps, but if you take a peek at their supports, sure, Ganesha has peel, gives a little bit of protection to his team, but Lomogau's no longer playing that backline peel, doesn't have the lockdown that he did on the Nox. So instead, he's going to have to play this backline disruption, whereas the entirety of Belt Slap's draft, for the most part, is really leaning towards that dive. Julio's going to be diving, as is Johnny, as is Trixtank. Zeros is likely going to try and stick close to his team and follow up on damage. It's going to be hard. Smileyface is going to have to find some sort of way to deal with this engagement, and I think it's going to come down largely to silence, and it's going to come down to Bratz finding these huge polymorphs.
That's maybe a lot of pressure on Bratz then to perform to make sure that his team stays up. And I think as we go later on in the game, it maybe is a little bit on Xaylia. We didn't get to see a lot of him last time around, and I think in Game 1, some of the biggest turnaround was genuinely just the fact that he was able to get 2 of those early kills. So now I would maybe argue that eyes are on the junglers more than ever. Johnny, he's Kali. I don't expect to see any crazy big plays from him for maybe even another 5 minutes unless he just absolutely decides to surprise us. But Xaylia maybe needs to pick up that pressure, pick up where, you know, this Nemesis's impact can be, and get online to start helping Bratz down.
I agree. Xaylia, I expect him to be waiting similar amounts of time as Johnny, but he's not going to scale nearly as well. I would like to see him try and get involved with the duo lane. Head on over there, see if he can gank out Arkle. Arkle not having a jump is hugely detrimental. If that slow comes through, the only thing that Arkle can do in return is go up into the air and pray that someone on his team is in range to help him. But instead, we've seen that Xaylia really hasn't put any attention towards that long lane.
Yeah, I mean, nobody really has been looking over here. It felt like early on the junglers were paying attention. I mean, Xaylia even hinted at a level 3 gank and then just never followed through with it. Echrome has been under pressure, though. I mean, Trixtank, Arkle have been putting any and every amount of pressure they can over here onto him. So maybe needing some help, something to get out of there. Unfortunately, Xaylia, I think, is starting to feel that same pressure, just now pushed with Johnny behind them. Silenced, maybe taking a misstep here. If he gets caught out, it could be a kill. There's a lot of setup on the side of Belt Slap to get Kali and Arkle into a good position. But again, it just turns into a fallback farm. Use that pressure, use the aggressiveness that you have about you to just zone out all of Smileyface and take what you want.
Yeah, this is a distinctly Season 6 European Smite. Both teams draft for the late game. Both teams playing incredibly passively. Both teams have solo laners that are nigh unkillable. I don't expect to see really anything until the first Gold 3 fight, which has been reminiscent of the last 2 games as well. Around that 13, 14 minute mark, that's where we really start to see them group up and try and make the plays. They need to get to level 12, get those second actives online before either one of these squads are going to feel confident looking for anything.
Pressure now to perform more than any maybe coming online. Suns are being dropped. The Hunters are back to boxing the way they were last game, but it's maybe not showing up as much as they wanted to. Trixtank, more or less, caught out. Unfortunately for everyone on Smileyface, does still have a jump. One of the things that Fafnir has that honestly not a lot of supports get to bring into the equation is that leap. And so being able to use that as your get-out-of-jail-free card in moments like that is going to make it even more difficult to try and capitalize on what has been maybe the biggest opening for Smileyface these last 2 games, which has been Trixtank's positioning. Sometimes, you know, we could just say it's not been the best, whether you want to go back to the Emoja, one of the 2 or 3 times he was caught out there as Ganesh last game. So there's a couple of moments where Trixtank has definitely paid for his position.
And I think that really ties into the fact that they picked Fafnir for a reason. He's one of the safest Guardians possible. He's just going to be able to jump out of any situation. Failing that, turn into a dragon, jump out again. No one's going to jump after you twice, hopefully, is at least what Trixtank is thinking.
Well, now Xaylia finally going to capitalize on this duo lane. Snipe's going to come down. Going to miss the second shot here. Looking for the third just in terms of damage. Doesn't necessarily matter. Arkle does have backup. Shell comes down from Trixtank to make sure he stays alive. Xaylia, now the one caught out. Dragon form going to be true. Trixtank looking to get aggressive. That's going to be the ult in return. Argus going to get dropped. Dharmic Pillars as well. Johnny gets one, but Echrome gets the other. It's going to be a jungler for the tank. Definitely a trade favoring Belt Slap this time around, as it looks like that's all going to fall apart. But the Gold Fury is in the eyes of Smileyface.
They're all healthy, but Johnny is as well, and he still doesn't have the ultimate available. He's going to have to go in with a little bit of risk. Argus no longer up, but it seems like Smileyface are a little bit hesitant to commit to it. Zeros is around. He could look for the I'm a Monster steal. He's got the largest bit of burst damage on the map, and it's just going to fizzle. Maybe they wanted Argus to just die to the objective, but Belt Slap are going to pick it back up themselves.
It's a little scary. Argus holds that way too long for them. It doesn't have enough time to regen there for the Gold Fury. So they leave it at about half health, and Belt Slap, they see the I'm a monster, and they say, well, maybe we're not going for the steal here. Maybe it's just the good old-fashioned secure for ourselves. And they pick up the scraps that Smileyface leave behind, whether that's Bratz not being able to pull Argus off, hoping he would have died too soon. Either way, it ends up helping out Belt Slap, and now they find themselves with a more comfortable lead, especially at 14 minutes in.
That's crazy to me. Smileyface knew that it was low, they knew that Argus was still on it, but instead they immediately fully disengaged. No one even turned around like thinking, well, maybe Beltslap might pick it up. We dropped it kind of low, and instead they're able to burn it away for free while Smileyface walk off into the sunset thinking about literally nothing. It's a bit of an iffy play from me, but still, we're only about 14 minutes in. The gold lead isn't that detrimental just yet, but the XP gaps are starting to establish. That level lead that we were worried about earlier on in the game, yeah, Johnny's already got 2 up over Zalia.
That's definitely going to be detrimental. It's maybe made up for a little bit. Jormungandr Mogao here is a little ahead of Julio, but honestly, when it comes to late game, I'm not scared of a Jormungandr who hits level 20. I'm scared of a Kali that hits level 20. So definitely something Johnny's got going for him. And even now, looking to try and make the difference, forces the World Serpent out here with that rotation. And while you are going to have Mogao staying safe, I think it just showcases the presence Johnny has on the map and how he doesn't even have to jump in to cause you to be scared and use your best disengage just to get away from him.
And he's already moving into that kin size. He's going to be able to blow up just about every tank on the side of Smileyface. Smileyface certainly is still on a timer right now. They need to be looking for these aggressive plays because they don't have anything that's going to match the pressure that Scylla and Kali are going to bring in the late game. They need to find the engagements now, which is why we saw Zalia try and move on over and find something onto Arkle. And it worked out for the most part. The whole strategy Arkle had was, I'm going to go up into the air, I'm going to pray someone gets here in time, and he's able to roll towards his boy, find the shell from Trix Tank, and survive the engagement. If we see the same level of pressure from Zalia, it's going to force Beltslap to retaliate, or at least respond and hang out around that duo lane, make sure that they can't use the slight lead that they have now to look towards the Pyromancer. Zalia can control the pace of the game, at least to that extent.
So Julio has gone into these builds that it's very cooldown oriented. The Breastplate of Valor, the Genji's Guard there. When you look at this Guan Yu late game, what is he bringing? Is it literally just the heal, or is he going to be able to apply a little bit more to the fight? When he was tier, he was the playmaker. Can he still make that happen here on the Guan?
He's not going to be doing nearly as much of that, but the heal is going to be so impactful, as well as that instant stun. I imagine we're going to see him just go for the horse, get this follow-up from zeros. Back up, heal up your squad, return to an objective. What Guan Yu brings that a lot of people don't like to talk about is that Talu Assault has fantastic defense shred, which makes objectives very easy to clear out in the early game.
Sometimes those objectives take the form of someone like Silenced. Again, if he takes too many steps forward, Julio can definitely capitalize on that. Arkle going man mode, wins the 1v1. The rest of the team going to force the World Serpent out of Mogao, but Arkle being able to get that kill, yeah, he uses his snipes, and he maybe didn't need to because he got the kill just prior. But either way, it's going to open it up over here. Beltslap able to get aggressive on the map now, finally feeling confident in themselves, looking for that stun, and as you said, he's going to go into the back line this time onto the Hera. It's going to be the follow-up onto Zalia, though. That Zeros is able to get some of that damage. No big kills outside of the one Hunter kill Arkle picked up. They get the Pyromancer, and it looks like they might even be able to pressure out a tier 2 here. No one is rotating to stop Arkle.
Yeah, Arkle gets the solo kill, the tier 1 tower, the tier 2 tower, Pyromancer. I mean, that's a huge swing in favor of Beltslap. Mid tower now going to fall as well. Gold Fury spawning in a minute. Beltslap has complete control of the map.
Now, Bratz is under pressure this time around. Silence rotates over. Dharmic Pillar is going to make it more difficult for Trix Tank to fight this fight, but it seems like he does not care. Johnny is going to go in onto the mid laner looking for that kill. Going to be able to get it, but it wasn't his target, so he doesn't get the heal. Forced to fall back with this one. Now he's going to be able to, well, again, stay alive. They force Smileyface to fall back. Beltslapper once again asserting why they are number 1 in this region and why you have to be scared of them. Smileyface has done a good job to definitely mark that up, but so far they haven't taken him down, and that's going to be the thing that needs to change. A lot of playstyle differences that need to be cleaned up for Smileyface here.
If Beltslap doesn't return to base and then immediately hold W directly at this Oni Fury, I'd be surprised. Take a peek at Smileyface's actives. They got none. Thorns and Blink, that's it. Blink on Nemesis, we're not concerned about that. Not at this point in the game, not 3 levels down. And Thorns on Jormungandr, we're not concerned about that either. The Beads, the Aegis, the Heavenly, the Shell, they're all no longer available for Smileyface. When Belt Slap's already looking at a nearly, what is that, 6,000 gold lead, and there's no relics available, they should absolutely be looking for every single engagement that they can.
Well, they did W key towards the Oni Fury, but it's going to be the Suns! E-Chrome walks up to it, drops them, and Belt Slap, much like Smileyface did the first time a Fury was up, end up just leaving it nice and low for them. They thought they could sneak it out from under the Suns, but unfortunately for them, it's not going to be enough. And E-Chrome proving his worth with that ultimate. Didn't have the relics like you highlighted, didn't need them that time around. It does open up the question about the rest of the map. Now there's only one big objective that Belt Slap would want, and it's something they could secure pretty easily having Scylla in their composition.
Look, they're not happy about losing that Gold Fury, and they absolutely shouldn't be. They had actually reset it and just allowed the Suns to rain down on an immune Gold Fury, and instead they re-pulled it and allowed E-Chrome to steal it away for free. But even then, we're still looking at a nearly 5,000, 4,000-ish gold lead in favor of Belt Slap. They're already ahead so much in XP. They could still group up on this Fire Giant despite losing out on that Gold Fury and try and force another engagement. They should absolutely be looking to pressure this lead while they still have it. This Scylla is going to be crushing just about anyone that steps up to him.
And now we're, approaching that level 20 mark, which is not only dangerous for Scylla because of her passive and the damage she's getting, like you said, pretty much crushing anyone that happens to stand in her way, but it also means that Johnny's going to be hitting that late game Kali portion where things just get way too hairy for them. Now it's going to be a World Serpent trying to come in and save Silence. Silence is incredibly low, and Johnny does not care that the Dharmic Pillars are there. He's going to be able to jump out of those, get the kill,
Nice
and
job.
now Mogao just used World Serpent and now has no escape. Locked down are the tanks of Smileyface, and they're going to be out of there. Unfortunately, that means for Brats, that means pretty much anybody left on Smileyface, and it's going to be easy kills from there. E-Chrome taking a lot of damage. Johnny's going to go in for it, needs the kill, gets the heal, stays alive. His team trades 5 for 0. A full-on deicide. Belt Slap, that looks like a pretty appetizing Fire Giant.
That was a clinical engagement. Have you ever played checkers and it just lines up perfectly and you're able to jump over like 5 separate pieces? That's exactly what Belt Slap just did to Smileyface, taking 5-on-1 engagements, one at a time, just moving directly into Smileyface's jungle. They take it 5 for 0, as you pointed out. Clean engagement, get the Fire Giant as well, and that what was a 5,000 gold lead creeping up to 8k. There's still towers available, and plenty of time that Smileyface is going to be looking at the grayscale screen. There's going to be a huge swing in favor of Belt Slap.
And we had talked about Julio kind of just being this heal machine. Like maybe could have just stayed back and healed more if they had wanted to. Seems like the team wants to spend some of that gold early on here, back to base. Again, this is the second time I've gotten to say this, but Trixtank's the only one on Belt Slap who has died so far in this game. With no Furies available, I think it is much like you said, the 2 tier 2s are definitely probably quaking in their boots at this point. Phoenix defense when it comes down to it, especially with the lead they have. Does this feel like something Smileyface can kind of bounce away? Can they deter Belt Slap at this point?
Bratston Hera has a really good tool to just make sure that they can't get minions into the towers, but short of that, E-Chrome does the same with his ultimate. But Zalia, Lamogal, they're not good on defense. Silence is going to be worthless the second he loses out on the Dharmic Pillars, and if Lamogal loses World Serpent here, that could be his death.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for him. That's the second time we've seen him use it. That time, though, it was very defensively in terms of trying to just get away. Not going to result in his death this time like it did last time, so maybe not the second time we've seen him use it to no avail. It does do exactly what he needs, but like you said, it's on a long cooldown now, and it's going to be at least one tier 2 that goes down in favor of Belt Slap. Potentially mid coming up next, but no, it's the Phoenix instead that Belt Slap want to take down.
They bought a lot of time just having Julio pressure that really Smileyface was 4 men grouped on it. Now Zalia caught out.
Huh. Yeah, it's maybe a little bit too deep there for the jungler, but he's going to stay alive so far. The shield making sure it does its work, as well as the shell making sure he can stay on out of there. Not enough damage from Belt Slap to take him down, but they've put a big hurt on the Mogao. And with Guan Yu just being able to heal him up, you can tell they're waiting. They're not going to back. Normally, that'd be enough pressure to maybe bounce back this defense, but this composition's doing exactly what you highlighted earlier, and they're going to go on right back into this Phoenix. The jump from Trickstank is going to try to lock him down. Good silence coming down from Silence, but it's not going to be enough to stop Johnny, who's going to be able to come in and get one. Arkle gets the other. Mogao is going to fall shortly there after the Phoenix goes down. Well, there's been some good damage in retaliation from Echrome. It's not enough to lock anyone down. Silence, once again, looking for a good silence, but that's not going to stop this team. They lock down him. Echrome is left alone in the base. The Titan is going to get aggressed on. It looks like here in 24 minutes, Belt Slap are going to take game number 3, seal the deal, keep themselves in the upper bracket. But Smileyface put on a pretty good show here today, Mifflin.
Yeah, Belt Slap not nearly as infallible as we thought they might have been going into this tournament. I think Smileyface has a very good shot. If they perform like they did today, continually throughout the weekend, I think they've got a pretty good idea of what they're going to get into the finals, and I think it's a fair shot and a fair bet to place them in the finals.
And it's going to be really interesting to see their path through this. After, would argue a successful-ish day one, obviously not getting the result they wanted, but being able to keep Belt Slap on their toes. Maybe there's some conversations to be had about the Nemesis, but looking forward to seeing what they're going to be able to bring as they traverse down in the bottom bracket. But right now it's Belt Slap who are the victors and the Desk who get to break it down for us.
And I happily will, Gormizer. Thank you and Mifflin for giving us the action. I think Mifflin kind of has already put it best, which is to say that Belt Slap perhaps not as infallible as we thought. They did get the win here after all. They took care of Smileyface. That was expected, but it did not look perhaps as clean as we expected. Some of that probably could be attributed to first games, they're warming up. Maybe they didn't give Smileyface everything that they deserved in terms of respect, but they got that win in the end anyway, Lermy, and here they are standing tall, able to continue moving on. What was it that you think that really sealed up this third game for them? This is the fastest win that we saw them got for the most part. It was also the most one-sided game that we saw. What was the big difference maker here?
Honestly, I think it just really had to go that Smileyface were not playing the same game that we saw them taking game number 1. They were kind of out of position a lot, it felt like everyone was dying one at a time. It was Silence, then Mogao, and then after that the carries would fall down, and it just seemed like they weren't in that same headspace that they were in. Here's a clip here of Johnny being able to pick off someone getting way too far forward, and Zalia will fall down after that. So clearly, the fact that Johnny was able to kind of pick off these people one by one, he didn't have to deal with 3 people in his face at once, and I'm sure this Kali was sure happy about that.
Kind of giving Johnny the exact preferred way that he'd like to go about this game, but there were so many elements of it that made this work for Belt Slap, right? The Guan Yu providing all this extra sustain for the composition. What about Zero Zone Nasilla? He was hitting all of his damage basically the whole game, and you know that you had Tricks landing that CC when they needed it, but this seemed like a much more disconnected Smileyface than what we'd seen from them up until this point. I mean, some of their defenses weren't great. That last time when they sent in just Silence to try and, I think, check on the Fire Giant is what it was. He died almost instantaneously for it, and there was a sort of cascading effect on the backside of it. They weren't able to really figure out what it was that Belt Slap wanted to do and get on top of it.
Yeah, this time there just was no way to deal with this Kali. I like the comp in general coming out from Smileyface, but when you're going up against Johnny's Kali, there has to be something to slow him down, and there's not really a single character on Smileyface that can really adapt around the way that Johnny plays this Kali, and not even to mention the fact that everyone else was right behind him and grouped up as 5. They had the deathball strategy down where they'd find someone wandering in the jungle, pick them off, and then someone else shows up because they thought they were going to help that one person that died, and then they fall down too. Over and over again, it seemed like that's what happened.
And remember, Echrome had some struggles back at the start of this game, it felt like to me, where he was getting bullied out, where he was having his dash forced early and getting punished, or a couple of early picks as well. This was not really that clean of an early game for him, and you could see it start to deteriorate right away. Let's take a look, though, at the rest of this bracket. Belt Slap now moving on, staying in that upper bracket. And remember, for Smileyface, this is not over yet, and I think taking a game off Belt Slap, and then even game number 2 being relatively close, I think it would do you well to give Smileyface their due respect at this point, because they'll absolutely make you pay for it if you don't.
Absolutely. We saw them take a game off of the undefeated Belt Slap. I mean, that really should not be minimized. The fact that they 100%. Were able to finally claw their way up there and just, make it happen. So they did their research. It's just all about what happens when Belt Slap realized exactly how to deal with the counter that they made up.
It's like you said, in the last game, they truly grouped up almost instantly, it felt like, maybe around the 15-minute mark or so. That early on in the game, they said, all right, we're not giving Smileyface any more individual battles. You're fighting all of us. And they just could not overcome that. So we'll hopefully see if they can maybe beat some of these other EU SCC teams, but you cannot, I think, count out Smileyface at this point. I did. Before this set even started, I was like, this is nothing. Bell Slap are going to slap them. I'm not even worried about it, but that's absolutely not how it went. So Bell Slap continues in the upper bracket, Smileyface in the lower, and we've got plenty more action coming for you here in the circuit playoffs. The next game from EU will be happening after the break.